Chapter 5009. The chaotic atmosphere is as dark as a cloud, coming to cover pressure. Hungming purple meaning is as deep as blood, sweeping and flowing. At this moment, it was a struggle for luck between the quasi-emperors. Everything is collapsing. If this is the Daisai domain, it would have been destroyed by the 10,000 heaven domain. Heian evil eyes stared at Yu Yao closely. Only devouring desire was left. Yu Yao was disgusted in her eyes, and she wanted to shoot as much as possible to defeat it. Otherwise it would be extremely detrimental to herself once she got stuck. Jiang Lian and Di Qing looked at each other, and only bitterness was left in their eyes. They are all bound now, unable to move at all. Once a war starts, they will definitely be affected, but they can only be resigned. In the next moment, Heian took the lead. He did not manipulate the Chaos Emperor seat behind him that covered 9 days, but instead released hundreds of millions of chaos chains and shot forward. This is temptation. Yu Yao's Emperor's luck has become a Hungming fairy formation, which is completely unbreakable. The hundreds of millions of chaotic chains shot out, but when they hit the Hungming immortal array, they were all broken and then absorbed. At the first trial, the chaotic chain was like a mud cow entering the sea, and there was no trace. The corner of Haiyan's eyes lifted slightly. He knew that Yu Yao's was not easy, and he put away his contemptuous heart. Hundreds of millions of chaotic chains were swallowed and absorbed, and Yu Yao, who was in the center of the fairy formation, showed contempt in his eyes. Her immortal formation is enough to wipe out any offensive of the same realm quasi-emperor. As long as she stays fixed, she can't break the defense at all. But Heian smiled strangely and rushed forward again. The Chaos Emperor seat, which was enough to destroy 9 days, was also dispatched with him at this moment. Waves and ripples were emitted from the Chaos Emperor seat, squeezing forward. Under this offensive, the Hungming immortal array could not help but fluctuate. Such fluctuations made Yu Yao solemn, and she felt that the entire fairy formation was shaking. Standing outside the fairy formation, Heian gave a gloomy smile, and then in front of Yu Yao, he split the fairy body into hundreds of millions. Hundreds of millions of chaotic auras changed into hundreds of millions of black clouds, surrounding the entire Hungming immortal formation. Looking through the fairy formation, Yu Yao became a little nervous when looking at the black clouds outside like mountains and seas. Since you won't come out, then I can only break in. Heian said lowly, his arms suddenly raised. In the next moment, hundreds of millions of black clouds raised their arms at the same time, and the endless chaotic aura gurgled up, condensing into an infinite beam of light. Then, a super chaos emperor seat that shook the heavens, quietly condensed on the Hungming immortal array. Yu Yao's eyes were wide open. Such a super chaos emperor seat is even more magnificent than the Hungming immortal formation. An unspeakable depressive aura came down from the top of her head. Once the Hungming immortal array couldn't support it, she would be hit hard. Thinking of this, Yu Yao gritted her teeth. The endless harmony and purple spirit burst out, supporting the entire harmony formation. This is the strongest collision between Zhuan Emperor and Zhuan Emperor. None of them kept their hands, and they did their best. The black cloud roared, and the super chaos emperor throne sank in the next moment. Boom! The unspeakable blast completely swept through, and the void directly extinguished into eternal nothingness. Under this blast, Dian Immortal will never survive. Jiang Lian, who had been exhausted by Siyu and Yu Yao, couldn't bear the impact anymore. They all vomited blood, and then all passed out. In this eternal extinguishment of nothingness, it is a battle of luck between the Emperor and the Emperor. The super chaotic Emperor seat was pressed down, and the Hungming immortal array also burst into a radiant glow. These two imperial styles turned out to be stalemate for a time. The two squeezed each other. Cracks appeared in the middle. Heian was almost mad, manipulating hundreds of millions of figures, and hitting the Hungming immortal array. The void oscillates, and the force of luck is combined. Yu Yao, who was in the center of the immortal formation, felt the blood churning under the pressure of the chaotic emperor seat above her head. I don't think you can get out. If you don't get out, I will go in. Heian said frantically, and the endless aura of destruction began to eat away at the fairy formation. Looking at the Hongmeng immortal formation that had already spawned fine cracks, Yu Yao no longer clung to it. Hundreds of thousands of strands of grand purple meaning condensed from behind her, turned into a broken purple spear, and pierced directly to the bottom of the Chaos Emperor. Boom! Ziyan burst open, and the Endless Emperor's luck broke out. With a point of breaking the face, the bottom of the Super Chaos throne was directly shattered, and the aura of billions of chaos disappeared into nothingness. The black cloud retreated heavily, and his pale face was covered with fine black lines. He was severely injured, and even the hundreds of millions of figures who were besieging the Hongmeng immortal formation were shattered. He whispered painfully, the fairy body almost shattered at this moment. Only after waking up from the ruin, now with his power, it is impossible to cause heavy damage to Yu Yao, who is also the quasi-emperor. On the contrary, it is easy to be hit hard. Seeing this scene, Yu Yao was secretly overjoyed. She didn't hold much hope for the blow just now, and she never thought that the black cloud would be hit hard. The battle between the Emperor Zhuan and the Emperor Zhuan. Once one side was hit hard, the end was settled. Facing the black cloud that had been hit hard, even if Yu Yao was cautious, he couldn't keep calm. Once she can successfully swallow the Emperor of the black cloud into her abdomen, there will be no suspense to ascend the Emperor's position. The difference between the Emperor Zhuan and the Emperor was an unimaginable difference. Only by becoming a true Emperor is he qualified to fight Jin Wuyang. Yu Yao thought. The next moment, she didn't hesitate to take the entire Hongmeng immortal formation and swallow it towards the black cloud. Looking at the void that had been covered by the grandiose purple meaning, a sense of horror came out of Haiyan's eyes. He was in a weak state and was severely injured, and he could no longer hold Yu Yao's emperor's luck. The great horror between life and death has caused Haiyan to ignore any pros and cons. He opened his mouth and shouted at the void. I promise you, as long as I fully recover, I am willing to be your messenger. With the sound of black clouds falling, Yu Yu reads www. Akanshu. Calm centered on him, and the void suddenly rippled. Then a pair of pale palms without any blood, came out of the ripples and hovered over his head. Countless tiny dust scatters the unspeakable breath of luck, falling from the palms of both hands, all dumped on the whole body of the black cloud. Looking at this weird scene, Yu Yao felt bad, and in order to avoid the abnormal change, she directly broke out an unimaginable momentum of luck. Another broken purple spear was condensed by her, and shot at the black cloud. If this blow hits directly, he will be dead for 10 years, and the Emperor's luck will also dissipate. But the next moment the sudden change occurred. Haiyan, who had been severely injured and dying, suddenly opened his true eyes, and his pale face looked straight ahead with a smile. He didn't even mean to dodge. Chapter 50:10. Faced with the grand purple spear that was full of turmoil, the black cloud gave a dark smile. He didn't evade, slowly raised his right arm, stretched out a finger, and pointed to the front. The broken Hungming purple spear tore through the nothingness and shot out. The tip of the spear to the tip of the finger was stopped abruptly. Strands of pure chaos aura rushed out from the fingertips, directly covering the entire Dedeo Hungming purple spear. Then it was instantly fragmented. The broken Hungming purple spear was shattered with a finger. Yu Yao was shocked and hurriedly urged her back, and the Hungming immortal array was also summoned. Slowly getting up, Heiyun looked at the immortal body that had been repaired, and showed its peak state with satisfaction. At this moment, his emperor's luck and his immortal body were completely restored to their peak state. This is the reason why he can give pointers to the Yao emperor style of Miyu. He has fully recovered, and everything before is no longer present. Facing Yu Yao, only greed and hatred remained in Heiyun's eyes. Yu Yao, who sensed something bad, could no longer retreat because she had been surrounded again. This time, I will smash you severely, and then swallow you a little bit into my stomach. The black cloud shouted depressively and madly. And at the same time a super chaotic throne descended again. He raised his arms high, facing the Hungming immortal formation and smashed down heavily. Boom! The endless shock burst out, swept the void, and wiped everything out. With a heavy blow, Heiyun raised the chaos throne again and slammed it down. One blow is harder and faster. The Hungming immortal array couldn't bear it at all. Cracks were so dense that it could break at any time. Seeing the chaotic emperor seat above her head, Yu Yao calmed down, and in her palms a true sword lingering purple intent was quietly condensed. The next moment, she drew her sword up, and with the complete collapse of the entire fairy formation, her entire figure turned into a shock, and she rushed into the chaos throne. Hundreds of thousands of rays of sunlight burst out, provoking a long sound of the giant sound. Under this impact, the billions of treasures released by the black cloud were directly shattered into dust, and he had to go backwards. With a sword the emperor collapsed. When the super chaotic emperor seat on that side shattered, Yu Yao stood in the void with his sword in the distance, and his face was already pale. The palm of the hand holding the Hungming true sword placed behind her was already dripping with blood. The sword breaks the emperor style. This is a great consumption to her. Although the black cloud has also been damaged, it is by no means as serious as hers. The original good situation has quietly reversed at this time. Heiyun's figure was vacillating, like a cloud of tangible matter, and came to Yu Yao in a flash. I said before that you only need to hand over half of that little Yangxian's luck, and I will let you go. But you are too selfish and refused my request. He sighed faintly. If that's the case, then I can only swallow all of your breath. Yu Yao sneered when he heard the words. You are so confident that you will kill me? Don't you think you can continue to struggle? Heiyun smiled inexplicably, and then he quietly raised his arms. The void immediately rippled for no reason, and then a picture scroll appeared, making Yu Yao open his eyes. My celestial monarchs, Yaoer. This seat is one step ahead and offers you the last luck. With this familiar voice sounded, the figure of the ancient fairy king also appeared. He was dressed in Feiyun uniforms, his complexion was indifferent, but he looked at Yu Yao with nostalgia, and stepped into the vortex array. In an instant, his fairy body shattered, and turned into powder to fill his eyes. No, why does this scene reappear? Yu Yao only retreated with panic in her eyes. And with the eyes of the ancient immortal monarch, the picture suddenly turned around. Thousands or even thousands of Dian immortals rushed into the eyes like moths to the fire. This scene was too tragic, and the dead Dianxian gave all his luck even just to gain a few breaths. When everything has settled down, only Yu Yao is left in the whole picture, and endless gas flows into her body. Thanks, Tusk. I thought that in order to realize the Emperor's luck, I was the only one who would be so unscrupulous. I didn't expect to compare with you. I really don't count as much. Heiyun's ridiculous voice resounded faintly. In order to understand the Emperor's luck, you trapped all the Dian immortals under your seat. I want to learn from you about this. Yu Yao's eyes were wide open, already in pain and unable to extricate herself. In that picture scroll, everything is a nightmare. It is the past that she tried to hide and forget. She did not think about it, but appeared again, and became her real nightmare. And this is also Yuyo's insatiable spirit. Seeing her who was already in chaos and pain, the corner of Hei-yun's mouth curled up quietly, seeing through the nightmare deep in his heart, and magnifying it several times to show it again, is his real masterpiece. As long as the divine mind has not reached its perfection, everything will not escape his insight. As for those who have reached perfect harmony, Hei-yun has not really seen it so far. She was already unable to restrain herself into chaos and pain, and the black cloud quietly disappeared at this moment. When he appeared again, he had already come to Yu Yao. Chains of chaos burst out from his big palm, like a real sword, piercing into her fairy body. Puff puff! A total of 100 chaotic chains were severely nailed into Yu Yao's limbs and fairy body, firmly fixing it in the void of nothingness. She couldn't help but cried out. But it was already too late. Divine blood flew, and the Emperor's luck began to quickly dissipate. It's a pity. I didn't expect a quasi-Emperor's divine mind to be so fragile, that even just a picture is enough to defeat it. Hei-yun looked at her, half regret and half ridicule. But it is no wonder that this is the case. Should have a wonderful taste when designing a loyal seat. Your scheming made me tremble. You are waiting for this day. It seems that you have already decided at the beginning. If your dead people know that you have set this situation from the beginning, what would they think? Speaking of having laughed wildly at the end, he seemed to enjoy this feeling very much. Yuyo's face was completely pale, her eyes had lost her look. It's really boring. You designed it for so long, but you finally dedicated it to me. Hei-yun shook his head. He could not wait to devour it. As long as he swallows a quasi-emperor's luck, he will surely ascend to the emperor. In the next moment Yu Yao, whose true eyes had lost her glamour, quietly raised her head, looked at the black cloud with a smile but a smile, and then raised her broken right arm. A true sword enveloping Hongmeng in purple intent, exudes an unparalleled light. Chapter 50:11. Hei-yun couldn't speak anymore, and he watched the Hongmeng true sword and stabbed it into his chest. The emperor's clothing was shattered, and the endless purple meaning burst out completely. At this moment, the two incompatible emperors' luck blended, and then looking at thousands of people, the great horror between life and death made the black cloud has roar, completely collapsed, and the chaotic chains although shot she was already a quasi-emperor, unexpectedly breaking the collapse of divine consciousness and stabbing her unable to afford it. Body again. That tragic scene became a real nightmare in her heart. This is an endless situation. In order to become an emperor, they are all crazy. She weaved a lie of endless manipulating their emperor's luck and fight with their immortals who followed her. They have the blood of the emperor's luck and tears gushing from her bodies are only one level stronger than the purple meanings were all shattered at this moment. And they are still immortal bodies. Xianjun took all the Dian immortals and slowly dissipated. Had one thing that Dian Xian did not have in place, and that was the bones of the emperor deep in his eyes. The bone of the emperor and then he returned to normal of the quasi-emperor. When he came to Yu Yao, and an important thing leading to his right palm, although the quasi-emperor is still a fairy from his palm. It has the bones of the emperor. Divine if the fairy body is broken, she has no fighting spirit quickly, and the emperor's luck has been immortal body was almost torn apart by the chaotic and I will live for you. But it continued to curled up, and then the chaotic chains began to eat away at her luck. All this is because of the bones of the emperor. Zhang Lian looking back at the black cloud that had awakened from a coma, it is now only the miserable. Even though he was restored and healed to the glanced at each other by that kind of unknown power. Secretly. His fairy body still bound by the chaotic offensive at all. They could still make the emperor bone was drawn out by after making the decision. His immortal body was broken even more severely, the unconscious and the damage he suffered had far exceeded the speed of repair. And finally, he was retreating steadily and took her to leave together. Even though Yu Yao suffered less damage than Hei-yun's voice resounded, her spiritual thoughts were already in chaos. And after the words were over, for chaotic if you continue to fight for your life like them in an instant, the black cloud without the bones of the emperor, you all belong to me. To die. He smiled weirdly at the end of the battle, and the chaotic chain but no one is willing to retreat first. Zhang Lian's because return, if they are attacked as well as Diqing and Fuyao even if they are not dead, Their luck had been swallowed by Yu Yao long ago. Chaos breath and Hung now they are swallowed again. Fought together, and there is almost no way to die. Chains. Their luck has been absorbed by me earlier, strangling and devouring them continuously. And all my luck will be given to you. Yu Yao held the Hungming with her long hair scattered. Yu Yao, and the Tao-breaking who had lost her fighting spirit in the other, suddenly spoke softly. Haiyan's chest heavily. Heian was startled. The blood of the gods flew. Fake mercy, and the emperor's luck was also offsetting the destruction. And are still negotiating even terms? If Heian was crazy again. He knew the seriousness. Yu Yao stopped talking, seeing Yu Yao, whose spiritual thoughts gradually became clear. Jiang Lian returned. He suddenly gritted his teeth, and even if Diqing didn't admit the void rippled. Along with this ripple, to return to heaven. Haiyan's figure has complete disappeared. Death seems to be their ultimate by the ancient fairy monarch. Heiyun divine blood was gushing out of his eyes and ears. The luck of a quasi-emperor. Only a pair of true eyes were still clear, immortals, showing a complex look. The emperor is unstoppable. Yao, I am at this moment. Yu Yao was shocked. The entire void of nirvana and the Dao has been swallowed and covered by chaos. Fell into the void, and the endless chaos chain covers everything. No, you are not Zungu. When you didn't notice, the void of nirvana. From the end of infinity, eyes became a bit of cold light appeared and quietly. Finally he said, and this cold light is too vast. You know, we all had descended since 9 days. Yu Yao was shocked. When dark clouds, the emperor when they almost disappeared. That bit of cold light has already obscured the world. Her spiritual thoughts were completely confused. That is a sword. No, they are all like fake. Hundreds of thousands of tassels falling. I also want to go out. Every sword intent. But what can I do when I go out? Nihilism. Shen Wuyan will not let us go. In every heavenly plane, there is no longer said mountain peak. Just looked at her in pain. Then there will be a horse-leaf immortal who is now dead when the horse chestnut grass was fully bloomed. All began to walk out of the void sad. At this moment, Yu Yao sadly in the entire void of extinguishment, as if countless stalks of horse-leaf sword grass were blooming. You should not look directly at it. Chapter 50:12. This sword is so powerful that every ray of sword intent can easily cut away the chaotic atmosphere. And then blooms wantonly. The unmatched and pure power broke out completely. Heiyun's eyes suddenly widened. Even though he was the quasi-emperor, but facing this sword, only the great terror of life and death came to his mind. He easily felt that if he didn't retreat, This sword would inevitably cause him severe damage, or even death. But in the face of Zhuan Emperor's luck, how could he let it go? Ah! The black cloud roared. And the next moment he tried to drag the chain, and Yu Yao away with him. But Yu Yao suddenly grasped the chaotic chains in his body, smiled strangely, and dragged him under the sword curtain with all his strength. Hundreds of millions of sword intents are intertwined with each other, with the meaning of crisp sword singing, completely descending. At this moment, in the eternal extinguishment of nothingness, there is only sword intent. Everything is falling apart. Yu Yao tightly clamped down on the black clouds, and exposed them together under the sword curtain, without the slightest intention of resisting. Only the black cloud's roar continued, and it was quickly swallowed. When Zhang Lian returned, Diqing and Fuyao closed their eyes tightly, resigned to fate. Kendo is eternal. This awe-inspiring sword intent that covered the eternal silence and nothingness lasted for a long time. When the sword intent dissipated, Zhang Lian returned. Diqing opened his eyes at the same time, and then was speechless in shock. In front of them, Jian Wushuang's figure reappeared. With his bare chest, his whole body was surrounded by the rising dark blue unknown aura, which was completely different from the Emperor's aura that had flowed around him before. But it was even deeper. They swallowed their throats together. "I'm late, please wait a while," Jian Wushuang urged, then slowly turned around. As he turned around, the ink-green breath flowing around him rose and flowed. The sword curtain dissipated, and the black cloud covered his chest, vomiting divine blood and the broken Emperor's luck. At that moment Yu Yao, who was desperate for death, suffered even more damage, and the entire fairy body was almost completely shattered. The blood of the gods had been drained, and only the Emperor's luck was supporting her. Seeing that the person who came was Jian Wushuang, Yu Yao couldn't believe it, and there was a sense of relief that was difficult to understand. The black cloud is panic utterly. He had never thought that the nightmare would come back again, and it would come in an unimaginable state. Heiyun trembled, and he could feel that Jian Wushuang this time was still terrifying. The dark blue flowing cloud aura blocked everything, and Jian Wushuang set off like a godless king. This scene made the black cloud tremble from the heart, and the past seemed to come again. Endless years ago, the Zhen Wu Yang, who had wiped out his body and spirit with just a slap, appeared like this at the beginning, with indifferent eyes and supreme luck, easily destroying a heaven. Right now, Jian Wushuang gave him the same feeling. No, everything has nothing to do with me. I didn't do anything. Just look for her if you want. Everything is her. Heiyun spoke in horror, disregarding any face. Seeing the black cloud that was about to kneel to the ground almost in horror, Yu Yao was a little surprised. Knowing that it was easy for Emperor Zhuan to raise his hand, to kill the Nineth-ranked Dayan immortal. Why would he be afraid of a little Yanxian? What's more, this little Xiao Yangxian had once died in her hands. Although Jian Wushuang's death and resurrection shocked Yu Yao, it didn't mean she would be afraid. So she was puzzled by Heiyun's abnormal performance. At this moment, Jian Wushuang seemed to be smiling but not smiling, and his voice was indifferent. "You know what you have done. Today you too, one counts one. No one wants to leave alive." Heiyun's figure trembled, as if his fate had been frozen. His gaze shifted from Heiyun, and he looked at Yu Yao. With his eyes facing each other, Jian Wushuang's eyes were only left with a cold and awe-inspiring killing intent. Yu Yao felt terrified inexplicably, and at the same time she realized that the aura radiating from him could not be owned by Yin Xian. "Hey, don't be stunned. If you don't want to die today, join forces as soon as possible." Heiyun trembling in a low voice. Yu Yao ignored him at all, even thought it was ridiculous. A little Yin Xian could actually scare a quasi-emperor into this? "Quickly, will you join forces?" Heiyun roared anxiously. "Get away!" Yu Yao looked at him and shouted angrily, and a real Hongmeng sword suddenly condensed in his hand. Her desire for death has changed, and only endless killing thoughts remain. He was yelled at by the anger, instead of being angry. Heiyun was surprised to the point that it could not be added. This was exactly what he wanted to see. Once they fight, they can leave by this. Thinking of this, the black cloud has quietly retreated. Once again facing Yu Yao, who had become a Zhuan emperor, Jian Wushuang still had no fear, only contempt. Yu Yao couldn't help but feel shame and endless killing intent. Jian Wushuang also quietly condensed an invisible sword at this moment. This time, the invisible sword is no longer invisible, but the whole body presents the meaning of black-green, deep and awkward. The black invisible sword, the tip of the sword pointed directly at Yu Yao, and he said quietly, "Today, I only have one purpose, which is to kill you here." She only felt absurd that a Yenxian who died in her own hands not long ago would actually say such a crazy talk. "Although I don't know how you survived, but if you appear in front of me today, you will inevitably fall into my hands again." Yu Yao said coldly. The endless Hungming killing intent completely broke out. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. His red-golden eyes quietly turned into dark blue at this moment. A deep and powerful breath completely burst from his body. This is an unprecedented, treacherous and deep breath, which is very different from the previous, but it is magnificent and surging. He Yin was already nervous and couldn't speak. He could feel Jian Wushuang's changes, so he was extremely frightened. This time, the breath is more gloomy and tyrannical, full of a cold and deliberately determined. He Yin has an instinct. If he doesn't run away when they fight against each other, I am afraid that there will be no chance to escape. Thinking of this, he was already planning a way out. Yu Yao was also furious to the extreme. Facing Jian Wushuang, holding the Hungming true sword, she slashed forward without hesitation. "It's now run." He Yin didn't hesitate. The moment they met, their figure completely dissipated, and they fled frantically. Facing the venting of this endless magnum and purple meaning, Jian Wushuang smiled contemptuously, then held the hilt in both hands, and cut out a sword lightly. The dark cyan long sword cut a dark cyan sword across the void of silence, and it immediately rose by billions of dollars against the storm. At this moment, under this Emoqing sword, even the nihilism was cut open. Hungming Zi confronted the billionaire Emoqing Jian. Like the brocade torn, the Tianhe River dried up, and the endless purple meaning was cut away without any suspense. Chapter 5013. The Hongming purple meaning is all broken, turned into billions of tassels and disappeared from nothing. And that Mo Qingjian cut the momentum without reducing, and directly slashed towards Yu Yao. The unspeakable horror shocked her. She almost didn't even think about it, so she blocked the Hongming true sword in front of her. Ding! The crisp sound of the sword sound was fleeting, and then disappeared completely. The Hongming purple intention was completely shattered, and the Mo Qing sword was also missing. Everything seemed to have never appeared before. But the next moment, the long hair between Yu Yao's left ear was all broken, and the Hongming true sword that lay in front of him quietly broke into two pieces from the tip of the sword. The prosperous sword has forced a quasi-emperor to this point. Yu Yao was completely shocked. She couldn't believe it. Why did the guy who had been easily wiped out by herself earlier give her an unpredictable feeling now? The Black Cloud, who was fleeing for his life, naturally saw this scene, and couldn't help but smile happily when he saw that Yu Yao was almost crushed. But when he turned his head, he was shocked to find that the road ahead was blocked by a dark blue enchantment. That layer of enchantment is extremely tough, like layers of dark blue feathers, which are extremely curious. A wisp of cold sweat flowed from his temples, and he suddenly realized that the moment Jian Wushuang shot, he didn't intend to let them leave alive. Breaking the sword with the sword, Jian Wushuang at this moment, his eyes were completely replaced by the dark blue, and the whole body exudes a majestic momentum. He used the 6 Crow Emperors to stay in the mind, the last one of the 6 Emperors' luck. The power of the surging Emperor's aura of the 6 Crow Emperors has all poured into the fairy body. Thanks to the weird characteristics of the immortal body, Jian Wushuang can almost perfectly absorb and fit any emperor's luck, and can exert all its power. Both the previous Jinwu Emperor's Qi luck and the current Lu Crow Emperor's Qi luck were able to fully display in his body. This is so terrifying that even Jian Wushuang can't explain it clearly. It is obvious that he is only a peak evolving immortal, but now he is able to fight the Emperor Zhuan. After recovering from the shock, Yu Yao looked at him with a complicated expression. Jian Wushuang didn't bother to talk nonsense with her at all. A guy who set up such a vicious plan to make all Yin Xian who follow her die. Even if he becomes a quasi-emperor, there will only be one end. Dead. Holding the Maching long sword, at this moment, thousands of sword intent are all in one. Wushuang Kendo, Zinggehe Jianini, the second style. River. The towering Tianhe flows out from the eternal extinguishment and nothingness, and hundreds of millions of sword intents condense with each other, and become a super sword river. Different from the previous ones, this time the Jian River and the Sea of Borderlessness were full of death, cold and barren. It is like flowing from eternity, never extinguished. This sword beyond the realm can't be said. And Yu Yao finally knew why He Yin would beg for mercy so gaff and escape. Because this sword is too variable. Before he could think, Yu Yao directly moved out of the Hongmeng immortal formation, and at the same time condensed a Dao-breaking Hongmeng purple spear in his hand. Tit for tat, the inch has appeared. The towering mixed black Tianhe swept over, and the entire Hongmeng immortal formation was swallowed instantly. Yu Yao, who was in the center of the fairy formation, only felt darkness in his eyes, and there was no other color. An even more unbelievable scene appeared. The Hongmeng immortal array, which was so strong that the black cloud could not be broken, actually shattered countless fine cracks at the moment of the collision. Broken only in an instant, Hunhai Jianhe roared, completely torn the Hongmeng immortal formation, and swallowed it towards Yu Yao. Yu Yao could no longer remain indifferent, holding the Dedeo Hongmeng purple spear, and stabbed the Jianhe with the spear tip. In an instant, the crazy river of sword was split into 2 halves from the middle. Yu Yao, who was in the center of Jian's tied head, trembled slightly. Jianhe seemed to be endless, devouring her spiritual thoughts little by little. She supported it hard, and the arms holding the spear trembled more severely. Just when Yu Yao was about to retreat desperately, the endless Jianhe suddenly dissipated. However, before she could breathe a sigh of relief, at the last end of Jianhe, Jian Wushuang held the Mo Qing long sword, quietly appearing like a ghost. With a sword stab, Yu Yao subconsciously stood up and broke the Dao Hongming purple spear to resist. the Dao Dao Hongming purple spear, which can destroy even the chaotic emperor seed of the black cloud, seemed to have lost its charm and became vulnerable at this moment. The tip of the sword easily shattered the tip of the spear, and the forward stab unabated. The whole broken Dao Hongming purple spear exploded inch by inch, along with the one that exploded in Yu Yao's right arm with the spear. Puff! A sound that couldn't be more faint resounded, and then everything died. She only felt an unbearable pain in the fairy body, and then looked down. A dark green sword pierced through the right rib and penetrated the entire fairy body. Divine blood poured out from the wound and spilled into the void. The emperor's clothes shattered, and her entire right arm disappeared. Under this extraordinary sword, Yu Yao was defeated in a devastated state. There was still an incredible look in her eyes, and the blood flowed out of her mouth as soon as she opened her mouth. Jian Wushuang backed away half a step, his eyes still cold. Why? How did you do it? You are obviously just a fairy. Yu Yao said in pain. She felt that the emperor's luck in the fairy body was quickly dissipating. Jian Wushuang did not answer her, his eyes still scornful. Immediately afterwards, a cry resounded as if coming from 9 days. Huh! Then, from behind Jian Wushuang, a huge totem constructed by the Mo Qing aura appeared. The totem is huge and full of supreme pressure, and only one chasing bird is depicted in the entire totem. The chasing bird is like a flowing cloud, in black and blue, with a hexagonal head, draped in 10,000 feathers and crowing, full of supreme pressure. With the appearance of this huge totem, Jian Wushuang's fairy body revealed a breath that had never appeared before. Yu Yao's eyes suddenly widened, staggering back. She knew exactly what that breath represented, and because of that, she was shocked. That is emperor luck. A fairy will have the emperor's luck. For a long time she said bitterly, "Why do you have emperor luck?" Jian Wushuang didn't answer but whispered, "Is it me or are you self-explanatory?" Yu Yao was startled, but she already knew what Jian Wushuang meant. Relatively speechless, she already knew that everything was powerless. Yu Yao couldn't think of how to resist that just shattered his fairy body with a single sword. Absurd, it's ridiculous. The emperor's luck I crave so much has finally given me such a result. She wept, and the fairy body withered to the extreme at this moment. I regret. I knew today why did it. Rarely, Jian Wushuang said this to her. Chapter 50:14. Jian Wushuang had nothing but contempt for her, but no mercy. And she never had the slightest bit of pity, even though she had regretted it. But everything was already powerless, and nothing could be changed. If the Galaxy Immortal Array had not been opened, would everything not happen? If there is no if, even the Emperor Zhuan will pay the price. The dust settled when the black ink long sword, which combined the luck of the 6 Crow Emperors, pierced into her fairy body. Even if Yu Yao resisted again, Jian Wushuang would have several ways to let him die. And Jian Wushuang didn't worry about her resisting at all, because the death-seeking heart was already born, and no one could save her. The next step is to relieve one's luck. Your variables. When you came to the 3rd and 5th heavens, I felt some changes in the dark. Yu Yao drew out another ray of divine blood, and his aura had waned. But I didn't expect that the direction of the matter would eventually go to the opposite side. Now I discovered that even if I master the Emperor's aura, I will be taken away by the catastrophe in the dark, not my own, and ultimately not my own. My Emperor's luck is yours, you can take it away. After she said these last words, she didn't speak any more, but instead released her Emperor's luck, swimming towards Jian Wushuang. But Jian Wushuang frowned slightly, waved his hand to abandon the Emperor's luck. I don't want it, please explain yourself. Yu Yao's figure was startled, a touch of sadness crossed his eyes. Okay, then I will explain myself. After speaking these last words, she did not stay any longer, and directly explained her Emperor's luck. In an instant, the long wind flows, and the eternal silence and nothingness trembles. But the scene of ruining the world did not reappear. After the long wind swept hundreds of millions of miles away, it fell silent. Hongming intends to explain to himself, completely returning to the void. Yu Yao did not make any other moves, begging for death. Jian Wushuang stood in front of her, watching this scene calmly. Another quasi-emperor explained the Emperor's luck in front of him. He didn't know how he felt, neither joy nor sadness. All this should have nothing to do with him, but in the end it was contaminated with cause and effect. Just like when he was in the Sand Demon Cave, Shaqing pushed him into a sea of blood, contaminated with unknown cause and effect. Jian Wushuang has always been passive, but he has no alternative. Immediately afterwards, the brief discussion with the empty wheel under the sea of blood also came to mind. Everything seems to be ending continuously, but it never seems to end. As the Emperor's luck continued to dissipate, Yu Yao's fairy body was almost transparent. Then, she suddenly opened her eyes and looked at Jian Wushuang. If you want to get out of here, the heavenly gate of the 3rd and 5th heaven is indeed the weakest part of the entire borderless sea. I have never deceived you on this point. She will fall, and her words are good. Jian Wushuang nodded slowly. Yu Yao continued. Actually, when I finally opened the Star River Immortal Formation, I changed my mind for a moment, but in the end I still did not resist the temptation. Hearing her complaint, Jian Wushuang knew that this was her last self-redemption. After speaking these last words, Yu Yao's fairy body was completely shattered due to the lack of Emperor's luck. The endless grandiose purple meaning dissipated, permeating the entire nihilism, as if it had never appeared before. Jian Wushuang raised his hand to retrieve the Mo Qing sword, and stood with his hand held. Dead. Jiang Lian returned. Di Qing and Fuyao Xianjun came behind Jian Wushuang at this time, and looked at the place where Zhuandi Yao disappeared with some shock. They all witnessed this battle completely, and have not recovered from the shock. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly, and a sense of tiredness flashed from the depths of his eyes. The Emperor's luck absorbed from the Lu Crow Tiendi one was beyond his control. If this continues, I am afraid his fairy body will collapse. But he still didn't plan to dissipate Lu Crow Emperor's luck, because there was still something to do. Zhuandi Yu Yao solved the Emperor's luck and completely died, and the grand and purple meanings disappeared. Jian Wushuang hadn't left him at all, but immediately after Yu Yao disappeared, something rose up. The rich purple meaning that is so strong that it can hardly be removed, wrapped a section of white bones. His eyes were solemn. Is it another piece of Emperor bone? It seemed to be induced, those Hongming purple meanings lingering in the air. Directly supporting that section of the Emperor's bones came to Jian Wufang, undulating. The bone of the emperor is one of the fundamental differences between the quasi-emperor and the immortal. Once the bone of the emperor is condensed, it means that the emperor will be difficult to obstruct. The meaning of Wuzhu Hongmeng smelled the powerful aura of Jian Wushuang, spontaneously surrendered in front of him, and presented Yuyo's emperor bone. Jian Wushuang didn't even accept her emperor's luck before. And now naturally he doesn't want to accept this section of emperor bone. Although this emperor bone is a symbol of the quasi-emperor, with an unimaginable grandeur, it seems to have no effect on him. After thinking for a while, Jian Wushuang finally decided to accept this section of the emperor bone. Reaching out his hand, the emperor's bones, which were engulfed in the grand and purple meaning, fell into the palm. Starting with one run, he has a completely different feeling from that section of the emperor's bone in Heiyun. This is a hot potato. The less Dianxian knows, the more secure it is. Now Jian Wu's hands, there are already 2 sections of emperor bones. Although this emperor bone was useless, he finally decided to stay. After stuffing the emperor's bone of Yu Yao into the Boyang bottle, he took out a few emperor pin pills that consolidate the source and distributed them to Jiang Lian and returned them. Although his own qi luck is still unable to recover, it has been completely stabilized after taking the D-pin pill. And it is only a matter of time before the complete recovery. Jian Wushuang's whole body was still surging with unsightly luck. And then he looked into the distance. There are still troubles that have not been resolved. All he has to do is to resolve the last trouble. He was blocked by some kind of black feather enchantment that couldn't speak arrogantly. Heian had panicked to the point of no more. In addition, he witnessed Juandi Yuyo's self-defeating and extinction, and he was extremely desperate. He frantically raised the Chaos Throne, trying to break the barrier. But this dark blue-black feather barrier was stronger than Yuyo's Hongmeng immortal formation, and he couldn't break it at all. Feeling the quietly angry chill behind him, Heian stopped the movement in his hands and turned around slowly with difficulty. The immortal Yin Xian, who was like a nightmare, stood behind him at this moment, looking at him with a smile. You have killed me once, and my emperor bones have been extracted by you. There is no reason to kill me again. Taking a deep breath, Heiyun said in a condensed voice. Jian Wushuang heard the words and raised his eyebrows slightly. Oh really? But why are you still alive? I remember that you are completely gone. Chapter 50-15. Latest station name. Mubi Pavilion. He Yun's heart trembled, and he felt the icy cold killing intent from Jian Wushuang's voice. What do you mean? It doesn't mean anything, just let you die completely. Jian Wushuang said softly, and Mo Qing's sword reunited. Feeling the surging aura, the black cloud was shocked. He flew straight away without thinking about it. Want to go? Jian Wushuang did not stay any longer. One sword penetrated. In an instant, nothingness collapsed, and an unimaginable sword intent shot out and pierced into the back of the black cloud fiercely. Boom! Under this sword, his figure was directly shattered into countless pieces. But Jian Wushuang didn't think He Yun would die so easily. He was originally a special existence, and the effect of the fairy body was almost negligible. Sure enough, at the same time that the fairy body was shattered, hundreds of black clouds sprang up in an instant. He looked back at Jian Wushuang, and then flew towards the wilds. Seeing this situation, Jiang Lian and the others were very anxious, but they were helpless. Once the emperor wanted to escape, no one could stop him. But Jian Wushuang was quite indifferent. Even though hundreds of black clouds had split up, he was still not worried. At the next moment, he stretched out his hand and swept it, and an endless layer of black feathers came down. The black clouds that ran away from the road slammed into the barrier and turned into a fluffy ashes. Only the real black cloud looked gloomy. The road was completely blocked, and Jian Wushuang was determined to die. He Yun looked gloomy, turned around to look at Jian Wushuang, who was already here, and said with a cold voice, "You really think you'll eat me? Isn't it?" Jian Wushuang looked at him calmly. He smiled darkly. "Although I don't know how you have the emperor's luck, I can see that you are still just a little fairy. If I want to keep spending with you, will it cost you to death? Then I want to see how you exhausted me to death." Jian Wushuang smiled. The battle of the trapped beasts must be fought, and once defeated, there will only be death. At this moment, He Yun will fight blood. The vast and treacherous chaotic aura completely covered the entire black feather enchantment at this moment. A super chaotic emperor appeared on top of the black cloud, and the entire nihilism was completely darkened. In order to have no worries, Jian Wushuang had previously returned Jiang Lian, Diqing and Fuyao out of the barrier. At this moment, they are the only ones in the barrier. He Yun took the lead. In order to take the initiative from the beginning, he directly manipulated the Chaos Emperor to smash against Jian Wushuang. The Chaos Emperor seat, which occupies almost one half of the entire black feather enchantment, is too terrifying. Even Jian Wushuang, who is the emperor's luck, cannot be underestimated. He is just a peak evolving immortal, and if he is not careful, he will die on the spot. Therefore, when he saw the Chaos Emperor seat soaring, Jian Wushuang drew his sword, and did not dare to hold it big. Wushuang Kendo, Zinggehohejianyini, the first style. Star. The sword slashed out without surprise, but it shook the world in the next moment. This sword made the nihilism and nothingness curled up, and hundreds of dark blue wands burst out. When the two collided, the super chaos throne shook severely, and then an endless aura of chaos poured out. He Yun's complexion changed in shock. Just under this confrontation, the emperor's seat was almost broken and faltered. He gritted his teeth abruptly, and endless chaos rushed out of the fairy body again, blessing on the throne. The aura was so great that Jiang Lian, and the others outside the black feather barrier, were a little shocked. "Wushuang, nothing will happen, right?" Yin Fan was quite nervous. "It shouldn't be, the luck on Wushuang's body is too great." Jiang Li said, "Without 10 breaths of time, everything will be settled. Within the black feather enchantment, the general trend is over." The Chaos Emperor was gone, leaving nothing but eternal utterance. Jian Wushuang stood holding the sword, calmly looking forward. The black cloud was weak, and the chaotic aura was under that sword, and the people who were cut off 7 or 88. A strange wisp of black blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. "It's time to end. Did I do it, or did you relieve yourself of luck?" Jian Wushuang said softly, but his voice was full of indisputable majesty. He Yun's complexion was low, and he already knew that he couldn't win at all under that kind of luck. There is still only one ending. But then he still smiled darkly. "I'm so lucky? Do you think you can force me into desperation? Jianwu's double-faced color was cold, and a totem that covered the sky and sun suddenly appeared behind him. This totem appeared, and the chaotic atmosphere in the entire black feather enchantment was instantly cleared. That is a bird chasing. It has a hexagonal head, and it is covered with diversified clouds and feathers. Even annihilation nothingness could not bear its presence, and it began to collapse and curl again. Along with the emergence of this totem, another treasure Xiang Zijian Wushuang came behind him. Wearing the Mou Luyan Emperor's clothes, it reflects the ultimate of all things in the world, and each leaf of Qingyu is like a small world contains infinite power. This is a true emperor. No one Dianxian could get a glimpse of his true face. He seemed to have walked out of Wanggu and came here. He stood quietly behind Jian Wushuang, reflecting on the huge bird-chasing totem. At this moment, Jian Wushuang's closed eyes quietly opened, and 100,000 words of ink green burst out. Not only that, but the brilliant emperor behind him, who couldn't look directly at him, also opened his eyes at this moment. The dust of the sea and the collapse of the universe are all under his sight. Heian had even forgotten to escape, and instantly disappeared in this sea of dust. Almost at the same time, Jian Wushuang spit out a breath of divine blood, and his aura instantly wilted to the extreme. This is the true strength of Lu Crotian Diwen. Only the first form made Jian Wushuang's divine spirit almost disappear. And he couldn't use this first style at all. It was entirely due to the luck of Emperor Lu Crow that he used this style. The reason why he was unable to practice the 6 Crow Heaven Emperor one was because he had to have a minimum of rank 9 Dian Immortal to be eligible. Void Radiant. This kind of aura continued for a long time before it slowly dissipated. The entire void has been completely wiped out, and even the borderless sea beneath him has collapsed down by billions of millions of meters. In the eternal dying emptiness, only wisps of ink cyan aura flowed. Only Jian Wushuang was still standing. The black cloud has been completely wiped out, without a trace of luck. Everything has settled. Jian Wushuang's aura was sluggish, and he felt the emperor's luck in his body dissipate. The immortal body also began to shatter. Using different emperor's luck twice in a row, his fairy body is like a container, about to break. His face was pale, and his palm touched the Bo Yang bottle on his waist. Chapter 5016. Taking out nearly 20 D-pin pills in a row, Jian Wushuang directly stuffed all of them into his mouth. The broken fairy body feels better. The medicinal effect of 20 D-pin pills is just enough to offset the troubles of using D-Jun Qi luck. If there is no D-pin pill, I'm afraid Jian Wushuang will definitely die this time. How about it? Is it serious? Di Qing stepped forward and said solemnly, "It's okay, but I'm afraid I will be weak for a while." He smiled bitterly. "It's okay, everything is over. It's time for you to take a good rest." Yan Fan said, patted his shoulder. Jian Wushuang nodded. Everything had indeed settled. The two quasi-emperors had died, and there was no obstacle. The next thing is to leave the borderless sea. Jian Wushuang slowly turned around, looking at the dying void in the distance. But at this moment, none of them noticed. The dying void behind them suddenly rippled, and then two figures walked out of it. In the next moment, those two figures suddenly violently, one after another, the powerful training directly entangled Di Qing and Fu Yao Xianjun. They were all caught off guard. When Jian Wushuang reacted, the two figures had already dragged Di Qing and Fu Yao, swiftly rushing towards Endless Front. Court death. Jian Wushuang drank low, and his figure immediately followed, and Jiang Lian followed him. A total of 7 figures, chasing frantically under the sky that has become nothingness. When the two figures that dragged Di Qing and Fu Yao suddenly stopped, the familiar scene made Jian Wushuang also stop. The sky is still broken, but in the middle of the broken sky, an almost completely broken sky gate comes into view. Here is the site of the 3rd and 5th heavens, and it is also the place where Yu Yao Kung killed Xia Xianxian and became the emperor. Missed, long time no see. Suddenly, from those two figures that seemed to be shrouded in mist, such a voice came out. Immediately afterwards, the mist slowly dissipated, and the two figures were revealed. Jian Wushuang watched this scene in astonishment. Those two figures turned out to be Bian Ziyuan and the young emperor next to him. Their reappearance made Jian Wushuang feel a strange emotional change. Bian Ziyuan's eyes were cold, and only cold killing intent remained in his eyes. And the young emperor stood with his hands behind, watching this scene with interest. It's all here, and it looks like a good show will be staged soon. When the voice fell, the young emperor smiled strangely, and then stretched out a pair of pale and bloodless palms. With the movement of his palm, hundreds of millions of tiny dusts suddenly reunited in the void. Then a figure reunited. Dark clouds. At this moment, even Jian Wushuang was completely shocked, and the black cloud that had been completely obliterated was revived again, which was simply unimaginable. He slowly opened his eyes, first at a loss then overjoyed. I can survive. Withdrawing his palm, the young emperor's face became paler. He glanced at Heiyun and then whispered, "Don't be too happy. Your enemy is right in front of you now." Heiyun was startled, and then subconsciously looked at Jian Wushuang. His whole body trembled suddenly. Only panic was left in his eyes. He hadn't walked out of that terrible destruction yet, and seeing Jian Wushuang again at this moment, he almost couldn't stand still. This Xianxian who killed him twice and pulled out the emperor's bones had become the most terrifying nightmare deep in his heart. The young emperor who received the black cloud expression in his eyes could not help showing disgust, and then he said coldly, "This time your mission is to kill any Dayan immortal you see, otherwise you will end up. It's clearest." Heiyun heard this, revealing a bit of bitterness. "Then I will try my best." Ignoring him, the young emperor immediately looked at Bian Ziyuan again. "Ziyuan, they will leave it to you." "No, I just want him." Bian Ziyuan's voice was low, and he raised his palm to point at Jian Wushuang. He nodded. "Then let's start." The familiar chaos aura spread out in an instant. Although Heiyun had been shocked, he still chose to fight. At this moment, Bian Ziyuan also moved forward slowly, only Jian Wushuang in his eyes. "Let go of them, I will fight you." Jian Wushuang said coldly, "Are you negotiating terms with me?" He smiled coldly. "You can get it yourself." After he finished speaking, the endless and exquisite water mist rose up, covering most of the void in an instant. Jiang Lian returned to gritted his teeth, and their luck was completely wiped out. Although their realm and strength were still at their peak, They were definitely able to display less than 10% of their strength. Facing the black clouds, they were simply unable to catch it. At this moment, the emperor's luck that Jian Wushuang carried had also dissipated, and his strength had also weakened to a certain level. Without the emperor's luck, he has 3 lucks on his back, and he can only fight the 6th-ranked Dian immortal. As Heiyun had been scared by Jian Wushuang, he dared not move forward rashly, only releasing a chaotic atmosphere behind him to interfere. This undoubtedly gave Jian Wushuang a chance to breathe. His fairy body has been overdrawn to the extreme, but still gritted his teeth and released the true shadow of the selflessness. With the addition of the true shadow of Wumei, Jian Wushuang strongly supported the 3 spirits. However, without waiting for him to carry 3 chi fortunes, like a ghostly Bian Ziyuan, he rushed over. He slammed it hard, as if a million celestial mountains were coming. Jian Wushuang was forced to resist, but was suddenly thrown back. The soles of his feet plowed a long ravine in the void, barely stopping his figure, and the blood churning in his fairy body. The breath of Bian Ziyuan seems to have changed. Jian Wushuang stood up solemnly. In the previous battle, Bian Ziyuan's realm was rank 6, and was finally beheaded by him, who was carrying 3 ways of luck. And Bian Ziyuan, who was resurrecting now, gave him a very strange feeling, and his realm was temporarily unpredictable. Jiang Lian saw that Jian Wushuang was invincible, so he prepared to step forward to help. Akanshu, calm was blocked by the black cloud that followed. I'm very hungry, so please stay. Heiyun smiled. Only greed was left in his eyes. On the ruins of the 3rd or 5th heaven, under the broken gate, a great battle broke out completely. The power from the 9th-ranked Great Yinxian made the void more violently broken, and the heavenly gate above the void again gave birth to fine cracks. The pale and gloomy young emperor waved his hand to isolate all the fluctuations in power, and then looked at Diqing and Fuyao beside him. You are all very good. How about being my messenger? In return, I will take you away from the borderless sea. He smiled slightly, his eyes filled with a strange bewitching. Diqing was disgusted and looked at him coldly. As a Tianjiao who came out of that ancient time, he has his own pride. Chapter 50:17. In the face of this unpredictable emperor, if Di Qing's luck has not been dissipated, even if he fights his body, he will give him a thunderous blow. How? The young emperor asked faintly again, as if he had already eaten them. Di Qing looked at him coldly, and when he was about to yell at him, Fu Yao on the side suddenly said, "I promise you." Ah! The emperor was puzzled, and looked at her with a little surprise. "I said I do," Fu Yao said with a deep breath. He smiled. "Yes, I know current affairs well. This is a wise move." Immediately afterwards, Fu Yao said again, "However, you have to promise me a condition and let him go. I am worth several times higher than him." The young emperor was stunned when he heard the words, and then said with interest, "Several times higher value? He is the ninth rank Dian immortal, and you are only the 6th rank. How can you say that it is multiple times worth?" Of course it has several times the value. His luck has been exhausted before. It may take countless years to fully recover. And my luck is full, and I can break through to a higher realm at any time. Not only that, I am also the Lord of the Day, controlling hundreds of Dian immortals. So is the value several times that of him? Fu Yao said in a quiet voice, looking at him calmly. The young emperor's brows frowned. He seemed to be moved by Fu Yao's remarks, and he looked towards Di Qing in a blink of an eye and probed carefully. Di Qing was already speechless, and looked at her fixedly. Sure enough, the luck has been exhausted. The young emperor sighed regretfully, and finally raised his head to look at Fu Yao. "You are very good. I agree to the conditions you mentioned." Fu Yao's figure trembled slightly, then his face paled. "Okay." Without any hesitation, he waved his hand to remove Di Qing's entire body. "Leave before I change my attention," the young emperor said. "You should thank this girl, or I will never let you leave alive." Di Qing Nana is speechless. Fu Yao smiled one last time, and then returned to calm. "Quickly leave. Your companion seems to be unable to hold on anymore," he said slowly. In the end, Di Qing gritted his teeth and left. But almost at the same time, facing his back, the young emperor slapped a palm. Endless Yulan Yanli burst out, and directly blasted Di Qing's back. "Di Qing!" Fu Yao said in disbelief, startled. She wanted to rush to help but was held by the young emperor. "He will be fine. I did not kill him. All I did was put him to sleep." As his words fell, the endless sea, which had been deep, suddenly jumped up a huge behemoth of 1,000,000 feet. It has 9 heads that look like a big sun, and it swallows the truth directly into its mouth with its head up, and then quickly hides under the sea. Seeing this scene, the young emperor's eyes flashed with satisfaction. Ancient beasts that are not weaker than the Dian immortal live in the borderless sea. They have the ability to reach the sky and the earth. They generally sleep under the sea, and do not know when to wake up. But right now, Di Qing was swallowed by the ancient beast, which was the best situation for him. Above the ruins of the 3 or 5 heavens, and under the broken heaven gate, the fierce battle continued. Bian Zi was pressing Jian Wushuang with great strength, and he could not even bear the 3 kinds of fortune. The fierce and swiftness of the battle between the two of them even exceeded the battle between Jiang Lianfan and Heiyun. God's blood spills into the void, and nothingness is eternal. Don't swallow him in your belly. Under the boundless sea, deep and barren, as if the universe is empty and boundless. Among them, a giant beast shuttles in the deep sea, and its whole body is surging with a strange color, which is isolated from the erosion of the sea. And above the huge head in the center of its 9 heads, an old man in tattered linen, with his arms grabbing his highbrow bones, lying on his head, said that sentence. The behemoth anthropomorphically smiled contemptuously, and 9 big sun-like heads spoke at the same time. "Are you teaching me to do things?" The old man smiled bitterly. Don't dare, don't dare. I just said that this Dian immortal is the companion of my benefactor." The 9 big sun heads of the giant beast slapped their noses together, and then the middle head raised its head and spit out a broken body. The old man hurriedly took it, and then let out a breath. "I hate the smell on him. It's very similar to a former enemy of mine, but my enemy is already dead, so I don't think it is far from death." The giant beast said teasingly, "It's broken, it looks like it really doesn't work." The old man's complexion changed drastically, because at this moment, the fragmented celestial body is clear, and even Yanli can't operate freely. When the giant beast heard this, he didn't worry at all. A guy like them can't die. I have left a layer of covet on his body, and nothing will happen. It is said to be ambergris, but it is actually a thick layer of transparent mucus that completely wraps Di Qing in it. The old man quickly calmed down, because he found that Di Qing's weak breath was indeed slowly improving. He took a deep breath. In this way, the benefactor will have no worries about the future. Shuttle under the chaotic and lonely sea, the giant beast said again. One of my heads was cut off by your benefactor. The old man's mouth twitched. Yes, isn't it? My benefactor has a bad temper. Become an eternal void of nothingness, with endless power erupting, smudging everything into the ancient battlefield. Jiang Lian's return to the two-sword immortals was already at the end of the battle. Without luck, it was unimaginable that they could hold on for so long under He Yun's hands. Although He Yun was pulled out of the emperor's bones by Jian Wushuang and died twice, his strength was still at its peak after his resurrection. Without restraint, he became the most terrifying existence on the entire battlefield. Under Bian Ziyuan's crazy offensive, Jian Wushuang retreated steadily, and the immortal body that was almost hollowed out by the emperor's fortune had suffered sequelae. He can't even use his power freely, and even his sword intent can't be released freely. Aren't you very powerful? Take out your momentum to kill the emperor. Bian Ziyuan's eyes were only mad, and he punched Jian Wushuang's chest with punches. Why are you so weak now? If that's the case, then you die in my hands and we are even. With a punch containing endless power, Jian Wushuang directly blasted 1,000,000 feet away. He couldn't resist, he could only let the fairy fly out. Boom! With the incomparable giant sound, Jian Wushuang's immortal slammed heavily on the sky gate. The cracks have become more dense and increased. Chapter 50:18. At this moment, the young emperor's eyebrows fluctuated fiercely for a moment. He knew that the heavenly gate, which was dusty for an unknown number of years, was actually shaken. His heart beats a drum. Ahem. Coughing out a mouthful of divine blood, Jian Wushuang's aura was completely wilted, and his chest was already sunken. He was completely emptied of the immortal body by the emperor's luck. Facing Bian Ziyuan, it would be difficult for him to fight. There was a cloud, and the violent aura diffused in the entire void. Bian Ziyuan lifted off and came to him. The endless exquisite water mist is also fully displayed at this moment. Are you ruining your luck? Or do you want me to do it? Bian Ziyuan said with a gloomy smile. Raising his hand to wipe the corners of his mouth, Jian Wushuang's expression remained calm, without sorrow or joy. You know. Hearing this, his expression instantly turned gloomy again. From beginning to end, Jian Wushuang never put him in his eyes, and never even acted as an opponent. A little Yanxian walked out of the road of bones under the river of blood with an impossible posture, swept almost all enemies, beheading opponents dozens of times. This impossible posture made Bianzi deeply fear and jealous. And the best way to solve the fear and jealousy deep in the heart is to destroy it from the root. Linglong water mist has become completely violent, and the power that is enough to crush the heavens under his feet bursts out. Behind Bian Ziyuan, with the same force of 10,000 heavens, a statue of water mist was realized. Hundreds of thousands of plumes of water mist condensed, and the water mist treasure phase that almost spanned the entire emptiness opened his true eyes. True eyes are red with pure killing. Die, I will never forget you. Bian Ziyuan smiled strangely, then his arms shook heavily. Along with the shaking of both arms, Shui Miss Baoxiang opened his palms together and slammed into Jian Wushuang. So under the broken heavenly gate, Jian Wushuang stubbornly resisted the terrible injury. The real strength of rank 6 Dian Immortal, bombarded. Even the immortal body can hardly bear it. Coupled with Jian Wushuang's mad use of Emperor Qian twice, he was already weakened. If he were not Jian Wushuang, he would have died thousands of times. Boom! At this moment, even the nihilism was trembling, and Jian Wushuang, who was already at the end of the crossbow, could not move at all, and could only endure the pain caused by every blow. His immortal body was embedded in the heavenly gate fiercely, and Bian Ziyuan manipulated Shui Miss Baoxiang to bombard with punches. The immortal body, which is stronger than the immortal, has been completely shattered, and the bones have been shattered into powder. If it were not for the protection of Jiu Tianyi Xian, Jian Wushuang's immortal body would have been completely dismembered. Along with a heavy punch, the cracks on the Tianmen increased greatly, almost to the point of faintly broken. The emperor, who was watching from a distance, felt like a drum, and he smelled a kind of aura fluctuation that did not belong to the borderless sea. That kind of breath fluctuation, when he was not exiled to the Sea of Endless, was an extraordinary breath. That is outside. After Tianmen, there is the outside world. Quickly, Ziyuan, blast open the Tianmen with all your strength. Because of his excitement, the young emperor's voice was already hoarse. However, Bian Ziyuan, who only wanted to kill Jian Wushuang, didn't hear any other voices at all, and just killed with all his strength. A sword cut quietly appeared behind him, and then vented crazily. Zhang, the sound of heaven and earth, the golden iron trembling, the incomparable sword cut off the right arm of Shui Miss Baoxiang, and slashed towards the side without any reduction. He who was already crazy, didn't care about the movement behind him at all. When he waited for the reaction, his entire right arm had been completely severed. Ugh! Bian Ziyuan was frightened and angered, clutching his broken arm and turning back. Jiangli held the sword in one hand, and his eyes were extremely heroic and indifferent. You move him again, there is no place to bury him. A large amount of sacred blood overflowed from the tips of his fingers, and the corner of his eyes twitched. He found that the broken right arm could not heal at all. He slowly backed away, already knowing that Jiangli was not easy. Seeing Jiangli severely inflicted Bian Ziyuan, Yan Fan did not stop at the slightest bit to go to help Jian Wushuang. But how could Heiyan, as he said, slapped him away, and then went straight to Jian Wushuang. Only crazy greed, luck, and Emperor Bone were left in Heiyan's eyes. Once he gets it again, he will surely be able to ascend the emperor ahead of time. By then who can stop him? His body turned into billions of chaotic auras, and quickly wrapped around Jian Wushuang. Bian Ziyuan was very angry when he saw this scene, but he didn't dare to say anything, because even if the black cloud was not good, it would still be a quasi-emperor. Crushing him is as simple as crushing an ant. After swallowing the deep hatred in his heart, he then continued to confront Jiangli. The Tianmen was extremely shattered, and the figure of Heiyan finally condensed in front of the Tianmen, looking greedily and madly, already embedded in the Tianmen, like a sword Wushuang of a blood man. He clearly felt that Jian Wushuang's aura had weakened to the extreme, and it was impossible to have a backhand. Heiyan is greedy. He no longer has any reason, opened his mouth wide and planned to swallow it directly into his belly. But the next moment, 2 strands of scarlet golden light scattered in the Tianmen depression, and Jian Wushuang quietly opened his true eyes. Heiyan was almost so scared that he knelt directly in the void. His face was bloodless, and his legs trembled. The younger generation dare to fight for glory? Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. There is supreme authority in the words. Heiyan's face was bloodless and slowly backed away. Big sir, I will leave now and will never fight you again. Hurry up. Shin anger resounded. Heiyan nodded hurriedly, backing away. The next moment, when he retreated to a certain distance, he suddenly smiled gloomily. Then he directly raised his arms, and a huge chaotic emperor appeared, and then slammed into the heaven. Boom! Eternal silence and nothingness trembled, and the Chaos Emperor seat was fiercely embedded in the heavenly gate, and Jiang Jian Wushuang's figure was wiped out. Heian laughed frantically, raised the Chaos throne with both arms, and smashed into the heavenly gate frantically. The Tianmen, which has been in the dust for eternity, is now filled with cracks, and at the same time, the newly born Tianmen cracks are about to break the Tianmen. The young emperor couldn't hide his throbbing, and shouted vigorously, "The gate of heaven is split. It's time to leave this borderless sea." Heian also smelled the unusual aura fluctuations, so he smashed the heavenly gate more frantically. The Tianmen was broken even more severely, and it seemed that it could completely open at any time. But in the next moment an abnormality emerges. Heian's complexion suddenly solidified, and he found that after the Chaos Emperor seat was embedded in the heavenly gate, he couldn't make any further progress. Hundreds of millions of zhangs of sunshine burst out suddenly, and instantly shattered the chaotic throne of one party and the bombardment. Along with the shattering of the Emperor seat, there is also the Tianmen that has been sealed for eternity. Chapter 5019. The Tianmen shattered, and this silent and solidified sea of immortality seemed to have also been awakened to its vitality, roaring over. The pitch-black sea water rolled up hundreds of millions of waves of dust, almost as high as the sky. At this moment, the entire endless sea of no edges was completely boiling. The heavenly gate was shattered, and the dusty passage opened. This was the invisible and intangible sea of nothingness, colliding with the real outside atmosphere. Large swaths of the borderless sea evaporated, and cracks began to appear at the edge. All this will inevitably die. Heian was already speechless in horror. He felt an unprecedented breath, a real breath. The Chaos Emperor was easily torn apart, and all their eyes were concentrated in one place at this moment. In front of the broken Tianmen, Jian Wushuang's original fragmented fairy body was now intact. His naked chest was completely covered by the Xuanhe pattern, and his long black hair completely turned into red gold, dancing wildly in the air. The two true eyes also turned into the purest red gold. Huang can't look directly at him, squeezing the way of heaven and frustrating the ages. Jian Wushuang at this moment surpassed all Daangxian's imagination. Heian couldn't even raise the heart of escape, standing on the ground like dead ashes. The young emperor also changed from initial craziness to trembling, and he smelled the most familiar breath. That kind of breath belongs to the real emperor. Bian Ziyuan was completely stunned, and only deep jealousy and madness remained in his eyes. Obviously he is an ant-like fairy cultivator, but he slays all enemies with his own power. How can this be what a celestial fairy did? Huang Huang couldn't look directly at Jian Wushuang, no breath at all. He slowly raised his palm, and looked very satisfied with the flow of rich and extremely strong air. This immortal body is very good, enough to be used by the emperor. The exit that completely left the borderless sea was right behind him, but all Dian immortals did not dare to leave at all, even to move their bodies. Heiyun swallowed his throat with difficulty, and from the corner of his eye he glanced at the side of Bian Ziyuan, suddenly making a living. The next moment he gritted his teeth abruptly, directly waved his hand to push Bian Zi far, and threw it at Jian Wushuang. At the same time, his figure turned into an aura of hundreds of millions of chaos, sweeping across the wilds. Because this was so fast, Bian Ziyuan didn't react, and he was pushed to Jian Wufang. Puff! A faint sound swept across his body, and his pupils suddenly opened to their maximum. The unspeakable pain, as well as the passing of luck in Xianyuan, made him look towards his chest subconsciously. There it was completely broken, and the source of chi luck was completely dried up in an instant. And this is all because of one finger. Jian Wushuang took a finger in the air, and let Bianzi fall away. And the supreme luck like a colorful glow passed through his back, unabated and shrouded in the endless sea. Shrouded contracted, the black cloud that had turned into a chaotic atmosphere, and fleeing directly showed its true shape. He was completely desperate, roaring loudly, but in the end he couldn't change the ending. Jian Wushuang stretched out his hand and brushed his hand, and supreme fortune directly crushed Bian Ziyuan into powder. Immediately afterwards, Heiyun was caught in front of him. Emperor, Emperor, please read, for the sake of my hard work in cultivation, let me go. Heiyun's face was as gray as death, and he had already seen this Jian Wushuang. Not by Jian Wushuang. He was unmoved, only contempt and indifference were left in his eyes, just like looking at ants. Are you trying to relieve yourself of luck, or do you want me to do it? Heiyun was completely desperate. He knew that once it died this time, it was truly gone. If you don't work, the emperor will do it. I will relieve my luck. After saying these last words, Heiyun didn't say a word. He died very simply, leaving no trace. Jian Wushuang was very satisfied with this. He waved his hand, and a pair of red gold eyes slowly swept across. He was the supreme existence. No one dared to look directly. In the end, he looked at the young emperor who was retreating, and with a wave of his hand he grabbed it. Looking at him, Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with doubt. I seem to have seen you. The young emperor's eyes twitched. I am. Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted directly. It doesn't matter who you are. What matters is your ending, only death. After saying this, Jian Wushuang did not hesitate, and squeezed him directly with a palm. Everything is done in a flash, and it can even be said that it is not a waste of effort. He turned his neck slightly, and then suddenly pulled Fuyao in front of him, but he didn't do anything. After a flash of doubt in his eyes, he was relieved. You are still his friends. I won't do it, you go back. There was a deep panic in Fuyao's eyes, but she didn't step back but trembled. You are not him, please return him. Oh, it's really interesting. Do you think I will let him come back? Jian Wushuang's mouth moved slightly, revealing a sly smile. The owner of this fairy body will be me from now on, not him. After he finished speaking, he appeared uninterested, and directly waved Fuyao away, turning around to look at the passage behind him. Behind the broken heavenly gate is a passage leading to the real outside world. At this moment, even he was moved. It's been too long, it's too long, and he almost forgets the past. Heaven did not know how many rebirths it entered, and the outside world did not know what it looked like. Now he can finally go out. Just when he was about to step into the passage with one step, two sword intents coming from the sky rushed towards him. Jian Wu had a cold face on both sides, turned around, just a scan of his real glance, and suddenly the Wuxia sword intent was shattered and dissipated. Zhang Lian backed away thousands of feet at the same time, vomiting blood, and her breath became weak. Suppressing the murderous intent in his eyes, he did not rush to kill in the end, turning around and preparing to enter the passage. But the next moment, Hundreds of millions of colorful Huayans suddenly burst out from the depths of the channel, shining endlessly. Jian Wuming was shocked, directly raised his hand to block, and his figure flew back instantly. Don't come unharmed, Emperor Zhenwu. The endless and leisurely breath covers everything, and this ancient voice seems to contain the most logical rules, and the heavens begin to be born. But after hearing this voice, Jian Wu's double-faced color followed once, his fists clenched tightly. Accompanied by that endless and leisurely breath, a thin old man wearing a black robe stepped into the endless sea, stepping on colorful Huayan. It was as if there were Dao rules flowing through him, and Dao Xianwen was slowly circulating. His eyes were cloudy, and everything could not be reflected in his pupils. Seeing this figure, Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. Yu Chong, are you here to stop me? Responsibility, Emperor Zhenwu, is no wonder. The thin old man nodded slightly, his face was quite kind. Chapter 50-20, Jian Wushuang, who was originally arrogant, flashed across a pair of golden eyes at this moment. He seemed to think of something again, and did not act rashly. The colorful Huayan disappeared. This mysterious Yu Chong, who had been following Emperor Zhenwiang, had no fear even when facing Jian Wushuang, who had already been occupied by Emperor Zhenwiang. After seeing his true face, Jiang Lian returned her eyes to be rounded. Fear flashed in her eyes, and murmured in her mouth, Yu Chong. The collision of intangible and intangible with reality will only lead to destruction. The sea of boundlessness is on the verge of shattering, and even nothingness has given birth to fine cracks. Upon seeing this, Yu Chong waved his hand to block the external passage behind him with atmospheric transport, which restored the borderless sea to its original state. Jian Wushuang's eyes were cold. His incomparable killing intent burst out. Are you not afraid that I will leave you here? I'm afraid, naturally I won't come, he said. His voice was peaceful and full of an unspeakable aura. Are you really going to fight me? Yu Chong said. If you insist on leaving here, then this battle cannot be avoided. Jian Wushuang stopped talking, his mouth curled up, and then he laughed loudly. Come on, stop. That emperor will continue our battle 10 years ago. There will be no victory or defeat in that battle. Yu Chang said softly again. I won't let you fall. He heard the words, his face flashed with anger. You despise me? Yu Chang said. Don't dare, but for the sake of Emperor Wuyang, you can only stay here. You are looking for death. Jian Wushuang was already moving really angry. Just stay here today. After he finished speaking, the infinite emperor's luck completely burst, and the unimaginable Dihui was enveloped in the boundless void. Under this emperor's glory, even Jiang Lian's frightening existence felt inconvenient to move, and Yanli could hardly be transferred. Entrusted with the immortal body, Emperor Zhenwu was able to completely release his emperor's luck. Emperor Wei Huanghuang Yanli died. The boundless sea is the place where the rules of the heavens are destroyed. If it is replaced by the outside world, I am afraid that the emperor's luck he released can instantly wipe out thousands of heavens. Emperor Zhenwu is a real emperor, not a quasi-emperor like Heiyun and Yuyao, who have just realized the emperor's luck. The presence of the emperor made everything sad. Yu Chang's face was unwavering, as if he was not in front of an emperor, but an old friend. Yu Chang, I take your own life. The original Jian Wushuang was no longer there, and the immortal body was captured by Emperor Zhenwu. He said angrily, the giant voice is heavy. At this moment, his whole body is wrapped in the luck of Godless King, and his true eyes without sadness and joy shoot out golden light. A pure to extreme long sword condensed by the emperor's luck. Then he was held in his palm. The tip of the sword pointed directly at Yu Chang. I also ask Emperor Zhenwu to keep his hands. Yu Chang stood with his hands behind him, smiling slightly. Emperor Zhenwu let out a cold snort, and the emperor's long sword in his hand slashed directly forward. In an instant, the eternal extinguishment was unbearable, completely distorted and collapsed. This seemingly simple straight cut, but it contains endless emperor's luck, enough to make the quasi-emperor nirvana under this sword. Facing this sword, Yu Chang stood there still without waves. The next moment he moved, the palm under the black robe flicked directly in front of him, and suddenly a deep ripple appeared like a mirror surface. Then, the emperor came with a sword, bringing the power of destruction. The two collided, and a strange scene appeared. This sword didn't pierce the ripples, but plunged directly into the mirror of the ripples, disappearing without a trace. Emperor Zhenwu would never think that this blow would work, and at the same time, he manipulated Jian Wushuang's immortal body to storm away. The sword of the emperor slashed heavily. In an instant, the sword intent of great horror trembled. The sword intent is divided into 9 verticals, and each vertical is squeezing towards Yu Chang with the momentum of the sky. The emperor is brilliant. At this moment, Yu Chang's body was quietly surging with a layer of mysterious black patterns, full of a barren, ancient aura. That kind of breath would sink, even when Dianxian glanced at it. Then he stood still, and the mysterious black patterns all over his body spontaneously formed a barrier. Boom! The giant sound was so loud that Emperor Zhenwu retreated 100 feet, and the enchantment of Yu Chang's body also collapsed, and also retreated 100 feet. The splendor of the emperor, sparks overflowing. Hundreds of billions of miles all over them have become a battlefield, and no Dian immortal can approach them. Jiang Lian returned and swayed the 3 of them, all of whom had been stirred out of the battlefield by the engulfed Dihui. Yu Chang, let me leave, you know that you can't restrain me. Emperor Zhenwu said in a deep voice. The emperor's sword in his hand was already in front of him. Emperor Zhenwu, where your responsibilities are, you can't leave. Even if I stay here, you can't live without half a step. Yu Chang nodded and said, with determination in his voice. The Emperor Zhenwu was already out of anger when he heard the words. The eagle dog is so comfortable under the seat of Zhen Wuyang. You know how long you have been the eagle dog for him. What he asks you to do, you will only do it, regardless of whether it is correct or not. He said again, those are not my responsibility. Then your duty is to create endless evil karma with Zhen Wuyang? Emperor Zhenwu sneered. What you have done is enough to be destroyed thousands of times. Death is not a pity. Yu Chang said nothing, and finally said, it's useless to talk more and keep sleeping. Why do you want me to fall asleep? It is his Zhen Wuyang who should fall asleep. I am more qualified to sit in the heavenly court and control the entire big division domain. Emperor Jinwu said furiously. The whole body of Emperor Hui had completely burned. You guys should sleep here most. The emperor's eyes burned, and hundreds of thousands of emperor splendor burst out, causing everything to be destroyed. The void that became eternal and nihilistic began to give birth to fine dark golden cracks. At the same time, the borderless sea began to return to tide and quickly evaporated. Emperor Hui condenses like the essence, is rising. The next moment, Emperor Jinwu held the sword of the emperor and stabbed at Yu Chang. The entire emptiness has been covered by the aura of pure gold, and the heavenly rules belonging to Emperor Jinwu are being constructed, providing him with endless energy. And Yu Chang is no longer as indifferent as before. The mysterious black pattern rises to the sky, with a barren, ancient atmosphere. The two supreme luck fought each other, and then broke out completely. Break the world with the sword. The meaning of red gold, against the ancient black pattern. At this moment, even the Emperor's avenue was directly collapsed in this level of impact. Words can no longer describe the terrifying and grand scale of this battle, which even eclipses the duel between quasi-emperors. The rules of the avenue are peeling off, and the sea of no edge that was originally a disorderly land is disappearing in a large area at this moment. Chapter 50-21. There is no place in the void 10,000 territories, the demon land of the immortal state, or even the barren secret world that can really withstand the battle of the emperor. Immortal yen is the existence that suppresses the Tao of heaven, and immortal yen is the existence that creates the luck of the Tao of heaven. And the emperor? No Yenxian or even Dianxian knew what the emperor could do. They were too powerful to describe in words. The sea is gone, and the ancient heavens are broken only in their thoughts. They are so powerful that they have no meaning, and they even exist for some reason. The emperor was angry, and everything died. Even Jiang Lian, who was 100 billion miles away, and the others were all affected. Their throats were sweet, and they coughed up a mouthful of blood. At this moment, the eternal emptiness and emptiness are all obscured by the two avenues of luck that blend together. The red gold blended with the ancient black patterns, forming a shattered dark gold. The broken Emperor Tiandao slowly dissipated, and the two looked at each other, and no one had even backed away. Jian Wushuang looked at Yu Chang coldly. The immortal body was rapidly shattering, and repairing at the same time. As for Yu Chang, although his complexion was still calm, his reddish face also showed that he was not relaxed. The edges of the black robe on his body were a little broken. Although there is no longer a confrontation, the two unspeakable powers of heaven are still competing. Emperor Zhenwu stared at him, and then lifted his palms slightly, a breath that was even more unreasonable to detach from everything, covering the sky. He has some regrets on his face. I wanted to leave here, after sealing Zhenwuyang town, let you follow me. But it's a pity, Yu Chang. Yu Chang smiled, not commenting on this. He said again, you stay here and I will let Zhenwuyang go with you. At the end of this sentence, there is no communication. The real battle has begun. Don't look directly at the emperor. At this moment, the crimson golden emperor Hui swept up, covering the void and even the boundless sea. Emperor Zhenwu raised his arms flat. The sword in his hand was as powerful as the emperor's way of heaven, and it was extremely bright. On his back, 6 intangible luck was born. Accompanied by the intangible luck of the 6 directions are the closed eyes of the emperor. Every true eye hangs above Zhenwu Emperor's body, as if he has been silent for endless years, and may wake up at any time. Seeing this scene, Yu Chang's expression began to be solemn. He had never imagined that Emperor Zhenwu, who was exiled and slept in the borderless sea, would grow to such a point. 6 ways and 6 days, true emperor. Emperor Zhenwu smiled slightly, and the emperor's eyes around him quietly opened around. Like the sky that encompasses all things, the open round of emperor eyes is nothing. Yu Chang, can you withdraw? Don't retreat, he whispered, his whole body surging again with endless black patterns. Emperor Zhenwu no longer speaks much, holding his sword and pointing at Yu Chang. Exit. In an instant, Yu Chang's figure was reflected in the eyes of the emperor's eyes that opened alone, and then hundreds of millions of invisible power came out of the emperor's eyes, twisting and moving forward. This invisible power ignores any emperor's luck, ignores any emperor's heavenly path, and even if they are both emperors, it can't be avoided at all. Facing the invisible force that covered the sky, Yu Chang no longer knew when he had an extra long sword in his hand. The body of the sword is black and blue, with dense black patterns engraved. Accompanied by the appearance of this long sword, he held the sword to fight. But a treacherous scene appeared. The invisible power that burst out of Emperor Zhenshin's eyes ignored Yu Chang's offensive and poured onto him. At this moment, only invisible power is surging in the emptiness of nothingness. Emperor Zhenwu didn't make any more moves, staring straight ahead. Yu Chang's figure was completely annihilated in the power of the great power, released by the first real eye of the emperor. He couldn't even resist, his body was completely shredded into powder, and then disappeared. With the disappearance of the first real eye of the emperor, the surging invisible power also disappeared. Yu Chang's figure was crushed to pieces, and his nirvana was destroyed. He didn't even leave any breath. But Emperor Zhenwu didn't rush to leave. He calmly looked forward, as if he knew what was going to happen next. After dozens of breaths, a breeze quietly rolled up in the emptiness covered by the emperor's luck. Then the breath that didn't know when it appeared quietly condensed. A kind of barren, ancient luck spread, like a billion stars descending. Wearing a black robe, a thin figure appeared. His face was silent and calm, as if nothing had happened just now. Emperor Zhenwu, stop obsessing about it anymore. You won't leave with me. Even if I have grown to the level of Zhenwuyang, I can't leave? Emperor Zhenwu sneered. Even the true emperor of the 6 paths and 6 days can't rush out of this endless sea. You have a try. Yu Chang said. Then I'll give it a try. Zhenwu Emperor shouted, and the giant sounded loudly. Then, the second real eye of the emperor also quietly opened, scattering out a vast golden light. With the promised golden Mang body added, the Zhenwu Emperor at this moment is even more unpredictable, more pure than before. Even the immortal body couldn't support this avenue of luck at all, and it began to shatter quickly. But at the same time it was broken, it was quickly repaired, and it was in a state of subtle balance. The golden light was shining, and Emperor Zhenwu moved, igniting the general trend of the sky and crashing forward. With a solemn expression on Yu Chang's face, hand in hand with the Chinese and Mexican blue engraved sword, forever. Boom! The general eruption that couldn't be described in words at all made the already fragile sea of boundless shatter instantly. Enough to make all the heavens and the heavens easily destroyed. It swept hundreds of billions of miles in an instant, and even more vast. Wherever the blast went through, the sea of boundlessness quickly evaporated, and even the entire invisible and intangible mysterious realm was collapsing. 100 billion miles away, Jiangli trembled as he looked at the broken pole. Wushuang, it won't be. Yan Fan's eyes were gloomy. This terrible battle was beyond their reach. Even if he wanted to save him, he might not be able to get close, so he would be crushed into powder. Just when he was about to persuade Jiangli, the extreme was shocked again, and then a burst of luck that could not be said. Run! Yan Fan yelled, but everything was too late. In the next moment, they were directly swallowed by the general momentum of luck. There is nothingness. Everything is back to chaos. This entire treacherous realm is about to become ruins. And they are still in World War I. This battle is a continuation of a battle 10 years ago. And the final victory or defeat will only come to an end if one side sleeps completely. Yu Chong, I guessed right. In the broken pole, Emperor Zenwu's voice resounded, and soon fell silent again. Chapter 50-22. Nothingness, eternity. Aren't these three guys dead? I'll swallow them all if I don't wake up. No, I wait and see that they may all be benefactors and friends. So I can't act resolutely, otherwise it will be difficult to explain. Benefactor, benefactor, treat me unhappy. Even your benefactor will eat it. Listening to the intricate sounds in his ears, Yan Fan suddenly opened his eyes and saw a head almost the size of a star, staring at him with vertical pupils. When he was surprised, he stretched his hand to the hilt of the sword at his waist. Don't bother, you can survive or take care of my kindness. It's not beautiful to act resolutely, the behemoth with 9 heads said in a low voice. Yan Fan is now at the end of the crossbow, unable to pull out his sword at all. When he heard that the giant beast was not malicious, he didn't even plan to do it. After that, Zhongli and Fuyao woke up one after another, watching all the changes in their bodies with some shock. As far as I can see, the sky has been completely broken into nothingness, and even the borderless sea below him has completely evaporated and turned into an endless abyss. Everything appears to be barren. Here, how could it become like this? Fu Yao whispered softly, "Isn't it bad to be like this? They only need to exert a little more force, and the cage will be completely broken." The giant beast said quietly, with some expectations in his eyes. "Now let's just leave it here." The sea evaporates and becomes deserted in ancient times. Everywhere is filled with broken Emperor luck, even Emperor Heaven. At this moment, there are only two figures that seem to have walked out of the ancient times, facing each other. They couldn't look directly at them, and their bodies were filled with unspeakable luck. Of these two figures, one is Jian Wushuang, and the other is Yu Chang. "I guessed right, Yu Chang, you have always been an emperor," Emperor Zhenwu said slowly, with supreme authority in his words. "But what makes me a little curious is that you are obviously an emperor. Why do you follow Zhen Wuyang?" Yu Chang was silent and said for a while, "Those are not important, but they are all things in the past." Emperor Zhenwu said again, "Are you still reluctant to let me leave?" He said slowly, "Do not blame Zhenwu Emperor. You know I can't break my six-dimensional six-day true emperor's eye." Zhenwu Emperor said. Yu Chang said, "You can't step on me either." Emperor Zhenwu was a little angry. "Then let's just keep fighting like this? For a full 10 years? If Emperor Zhenwu is willing, I can accompany him. Then what if I want to drag you to relieve yourself?" Emperor Zhenwu's face was extremely gloomy, and he was completely angry. Yu Chang nodded. "So, I will never resist." "Idiot, stubborn stone. I really want to know what exactly Zhen Wuyang did to make you treat you like this." Emperor Zhenwu sighed. Yu Chang spoke again, his voice a little old. "Come on, you know this will never come to fruition. Do you think I will stop? Do you know how many years I have slept here? How sinful I am to be banished here? If you are guilty, he really Wuyang is guilty, he is sorry for me." Emperor Zhenwu was completely angry and shouted, "Yu Chang, don't you know everything he does to me?" He was silent and finally said, "I know, but these can't be changed. The birth of some great roads is actually original sin. So I was exiled here?" Emperor Zhenwu sneered. "At this moment, even if I fall, I will let Zhen Wuyang confront me." After he finished speaking, the true eyes of the 6 emperors behind him were all unified, turning into an endless river of heaven flowing. Then, he stabs forward with the sword of the emperor in his hand. This sword, transcending everything, is a sword of fury. The emperor was angry, everything disappeared. Facing this sword, Yu Chang did not retreat nor resist, just standing straight in place, completely withstanding the sword with the emperor body. If the water and moon close together, they all come together. Without any sound, the sword of the emperor ripped open his emperor body without any hindrance, right at the center mouth. Hundreds of millions of huagong burst out from behind Yu Chang and directly shred his imperial body. Holding the hilt of the sword, Emperor Zhenwu Jundao, "Why don't you resist?" This sword hit him severely, leaving the emperor body to pieces. The endless emperor's luck is scattered in the eternal emptiness, turning into big sun stars, re-emergence of a certain unknown heaven. Yu Chang coughs softly. "I can't avoid this sword. It's the Emperor Wuyang who made the mistake for you. I want Zhen Wuyang to admit his mistake personally." Zhenwu Emperor roared, and the terrible emperor's luck fluctuates constantly. "He is an emperor, and he can't admit if he is wrong," Yu Chang said. The vitality of Emperor Zhenwu trembled, and he didn't speak any more. Facing such a thin old man, he didn't want to let him truly die. He was about to pull out the sword of the emperor, but Yu Chang suddenly stretched out his hand to hold the sword of the emperor in his heart, not letting it out. "Are you really looking for death?" he said coldly. Yu Chang looked up, his eyes apologetic. "Emperor Zhenwu, don't blame the old man." Emperor Zhenwu was taken aback, then shocked, anxious to retreat. But it was too late, and Yu Chang used his body as a bait to let him fall into a trap. Only then did he realize that he could no longer retreat, and his whole body was wrapped in a barren, ancient atmosphere. Strands of barren ancient black patterns flowed quietly, binding him firmly. This ridiculous ancient black pattern is also the luck of the emperor. Let me go, Yu Changyu, Zhenwu Emperor roared, but everything was powerless. Endless ancient black patterns entangled him, directly extinguishing the emperor's luck in him, making him unable to move. With more and more barren ancient black patterns, Emperor Zhenwu gradually fell into deep sleep. The grand Dihui dissipated, and his true shadow fell asleep completely. Strands of divine blood flowed out of the immortal body, and the immortal body lay directly in the void. Jian Wushuang seemed to fall into a deep sleep. Although his fairy body was constantly shattering and recovering, there was no sign of waking up. Yu Chang looked pale, and calmly looked at Jian Wushuang floating in the void. Then he stretched out his palm. The infinite desolation ancient black pattern was completely submerged in the immortal body, stripping out the true shadow of Emperor Zhenwu's sleep. Ah! Jian Wushuang suddenly sat up, and endless pain came out of his eyes. The immortal body was constantly shattered and reshaped, causing him to suffer to the extreme. With the true shadow of Emperor Zhenwu being pulled away, this pain has been magnified countless times, almost killing him. The power of the emperor is too terrifying. Even if it is just leftover, it is not what he can bear. Chapter 50-23. This made his divine thoughts of perfect harmony are about to be shattered. All the hard work has made the immortal body unable to support it at all. And the broken ones are even worse. Because there is no imperial luck to support Zhenwu Emperor, it has reached the point of being on the verge of destruction. He has been unable to think clearly about the problem, his spiritual thoughts, and the immortal body have reached an unprecedented level of pain. Facing Jian Wushuang, who was burning and disintegrating, Yu Chang waved his hand and lowered a strand of the purest ancient black pattern, covering it. Jian Wushuang stopped screaming and then fell unconscious. After a moment of silence, a sigh, like a sigh, disappeared, and Yu Chang reached out to hold it and prepared to leave. At this moment, several weak energy auras came from far to near. Yu Chang stopped and looked around. Jiang Lian returned, Fuyao, as well as the behemoth with 9 heads and the old sheep boy, all rushed at this moment. Even though they have gone through eternal years and were banished here, their moods have long been withered, but after seeing the passage to the outside world, they still can't take it lightly. But none of them took that step, because everyone knew very well that Yu Chang, who stood in front of the passage, could not resist. Looking at them, Yu Chang said softly, "You can't leave." At this moment no one spoke, only bitterness in his eyes. Covering the loss of his eyes, Yin took a step back and said, "I beg you to take care of his injury." Yu Chang smiled slightly. "I recognize you, you are the sword fairy back then. It's all the past, don't mention it." Yin returned with a dry smile. "Please let that kid survive." Yu Chang nodded, and just as he was about to leave, another voice stopped him. "Please wait." The old sheep's voice trembled slightly, and he came to him with the still sleeping Shen Qing in his arms. "This one, can you let him out?" Yu Chang stayed silent, reached out his hand to take over Zhiqing with Qi Luck, then turned and left, disappearing completely after entering the passage. With his departure, the passage closed. The shattered sky began to heal, and the dried-up endless sea rushed and surged again. Everything that happened before left no trace of existence, and everything returned to its original appearance. Our luck has also recovered. Looking at the completely closed Tianmen passage, Yan Fan murmured. Jiangli was a little frustrated. All this really seems to have never happened. Trust me, we will leave the day. Pain. The immortal body seems to enter a certain cycle, constantly shattering, and constantly reshaping. The pain in this is beyond words. Every 360 breaths, the immortal body will be broken and reshaped, and endless blood is flowing. Even if his mind was mellow, he couldn't bear it. When the fairy body shattered and reshaped to 36,000 times, Jian Wushuang finally fell asleep completely. The world is quiet and the wind is long. In my ears faintly heard the snickers of children, and the cool wind passed by, unspeakably comfortable. It's just that this kind of comfort can't bear the pain caused by the dizziness. The pain in his mind forced Jian Wushuang to wake up and withdraw from the pain. The pupils barely focused, and the slightly low grass was in sight, and several faces of children upside down. Among these children's faces, there was a child with a braided head and a grinning face. He pinched a fairy grass and stuffed it into Jian Wushuang's nostrils. The stabbing and itching made him unbearable at all, and then he let out a loud sneeze. With this sneeze out, the already weak fairy body almost fell apart. "Yeah, I finally woke up." The children laughed excitedly. Dizziness and swelling. The Xian's body was in severe pain, making Jian Wushuang ready to struggle to get up, but soon he realized that something was wrong. He was hanging on one leg under a fairy tree. "Hey, you naughty children, put me down quickly!" Jian Wushuang shouted weakly. He wanted to use his own power to break free, but found it was in vain. He could only ask for forgiveness from these children. It was the naughty kid who was still teasing him. With a turn of his smart eyes, he smacked his lips and said, "You can come down if you want, but you have to have something to exchange, such as candy." "Candy? I have a lot of candies. You put me down first, I will show you." Jian Wushuang continued to say weakly. "You lie. You only have a pair of pants left. How can there be a place to hide candy?" The naughty boy said loudly with his arms akimbo, and the rest of the children joined in. He was startled, and hurriedly looked under him, but as expected, only a pair of pants was left. Besides the trousers, even the Boyang bottle on his waist had disappeared. Regarding what happened after Emperor Zhenwu took over the immortal body, although he had a vague impression, he was still in a state of shock. After all, the Boyang vase contains all the treasures and the true soul of the 3 emperors. If it is lost, the loss will be incalculable. You guys, put me down quickly, otherwise none of you will have good fruit. Jian Wushuang was a little anxious and shouted in shock. Never thought that these jade doll-like children, without any fear, made faces at him. He was so helpless about it, but he couldn't even use any power. This situation didn't last long. When a little boy with red lips and white teeth rushed over, they all fell apart. You little guys, if you dare to tease guests next time, I will make you all unable to eat. The little boy's hands on his hips. His little fleshy face was full of sullen anger. After the gang of urchins were completely driven away, the little boy rushed to Jian Wushuang and waved his hand to cut the fairy vine, allowing him to land. When he fell to the ground, he snorted and fell into a bad shape. Brother Jian, I knew you were here. A crisp and soft voice rang from the boy's mouth. Calm, and she threw directly into Jian Wushuang's arms excitedly. Under this pounce, he almost shut his breath. His eyes were black, and then the sky star appeared randomly. What's wrong with you, Brother Jian? Nothing. Enduring the immortal body that was about to fall apart, Jian Wushuang showed a smile that was uglier than crying, and sat up with the boy in his arms. Right now, this little boy with double hair bun, red lips and white teeth, who appeared like a jade doll, was no one else. It was when Jian Wushuang first visited the heavenly court. He met the first boy to lead him, Xiao Ami. Ami, why are you here? It's dangerous here. Jian Wushuang subconsciously hugged her tightly and said with some caution. It's not dangerous, Brother Jian, here is the heaven. Ami blinked and said smartly. Chapter 50-24. Jian Wushuang was startled when he heard the words. Then, all the previous memories rushed to my heart. The boundless sea of broken nothingness, the crazy Zhenwu Emperor, and the calm and ancient Yu Chang, all appeared in the mind. Here is heaven, here is heaven. Yes, it was him who brought me out of the borderless sea. Jian Wushuang's expression was dignified and complicated. He was worried about so many things he didn't know what to do for a while. Big Brother Jian, how are you doing? I think your complexion is so bad. Ami said nervously, his eyes clear to the extreme. Looking at her eyes, Jian Wushuang's anxious heart slowly fell silent. It's okay, Ami. He shook his head and smiled reluctantly. Here is the heaven, really? Yes, that's right. Ami nodded and said incomparably. This is Zayajishan. And it is also within the scope of the heavenly court, where Grandpa lives leisurely. He heard the words and nodded. Who can be called Grandpa by Ami? I'm afraid no one else is qualified except that one. After weighing it again and again, Jian Wushuang said, Will you take me there and see Uncle Yu? Of course it can. Those who can come to Xiaojia Mountain are heavy guests. Ami said with a smile, and then jumped down, pulling Jian Wushuang and leaving. Ami, go slowly. The rich to the extreme original generative power is flowing slowly. The fairy grass is stalking, and the clear spring is flowing. Here is the real wonderland. Jian Wushuang, who was being dragged by Ami, his fairy body was slowly recovering and repairing. Big Brother Jian, go faster. I will take you to see Grandpa. Ami said excitedly. Jian Wushuang nodded. All his worries and incomprehension can only be solved by seeing Yu Chang or Zhen Wuyang. Under the guidance of Ami, the whole picture of this Zayajishan was kept in view. Here, there is no Sendai Qianglu, nor is there a magnificent temple, only vines and long grasses and clear springs. Just as Jian Wushuang was moving forward, hurrying to repair the immortal body, a figure dressed in a plain shirt stepped on the cloud, and the real sword in his hand surged with a powerful force. Stop! What Jian Feng pointed to the grass leaves Shuafei. This is a handsome young man with sharp eyebrows and extreme coldness. Seeing this young man, Ami stopped, a little nervous. Who are you? Why did you come to Zayajishan? He shouted loudly, with murderous intent in his eyes. Jian Wushuang remained silent, blocking Ami behind him, and said in a low voice, I want to see Uncle Yu. You tell me the truth, you should know the truth. When the handsome young man heard the words, his expression became even colder. In other words, you broke into Zayajishan without authorization? He sighed secretly. A battle might be inevitable. But at this moment a quiet and gentle voice sounded. He is a visitor from Zayajishan, and I can testify. Jian Wushuang looked around. only to see a figure riding down in the breeze to the very center. This is a woman in plain clothes with a cold and weak face. Seeing the appearance of this woman, the handsome young man frowned slightly. Chong Ling, how do you prove it? The woman named Chong Ling took a step forward, her voice cold and sharp. Then I have to ask you first, when in the big division domain, a fairy yen could break into Zaijishin without authorization? The handsome young man looked stiff and said uncomfortably, I am guarding against the infiltration of foreign enemies. You also know the importance of Zaijishin. Chong Ling heard the words, and the corners of her mouth curled up. Qingshan, what you said of yours, what if it spreads to you boss ears, or even to the ears of veterans? Chong Ling, what do you mean? The handsome young man stepped back and said nervously, if you don't want to give birth to more right and wrong, just get out of it. She said condensedly, then turned to look at Jian Wushuang, tilting her head slightly. Qingshan was angry, but didn't dare to stop him, so he could only glare at them and proceeded. Seeing Qingshan leaving, Ami, who was hiding behind him, hurriedly rushed into Jian Wushuang's arms in twos. Fortunately, Sister Ling will help, otherwise we will be in trouble. Ami patted his small body and said. Jian Wushuang nodded, then looked at Chong Ling beside him and nodded. Thank you for your help. Chong Ling looked at him meaningfully. Here, since I can remember, there has never been a foreigner to set foot. You are the first one. Your identity is not simple. He shook his head. You think too much, even I don't know how I got here. At this time Ami said, Brother Jian is here to find Uncle Yu. It's really not easy, good luck. Chong Ling said, Uncle Yu is very mysterious. If you want to find him, you just need to move forward. Just go ahead. Chong Ling nodded. This Zaijishin is infinite, and no immortal can travel here. If you want to find Uncle Yu, it depends on whether Uncle Yu wants to see you. Don't worry, Brother Jian, there is Ami, and I will definitely let you find Uncle Yu. Ami promised to pat her small body. Chong Ling couldn't help being so handsome. She stretched out her hand and rubbed her little hair bun. Ami, do you want to follow me? Ami shook his head, stretched out his short and chubby little arm, and tightly wrapped Jian Wushuang's neck. No, I have to take care of Grandpa. Okay, it made you happy. Chong Ling smiled, then looked at Jian Wushuang. You are the only one who can make Ami depend so much besides the Emperor under the seat of the Emperor. I am surprised. Big Brother Jian is Xiao Daijin's friend, and that is my brother. Ami said with a wink. So, I wish you good luck, and find Uncle Yu as soon as possible. Chong Ling smiled slightly and stopped where she was. Jian Wushuang nodded, then hugged Ami and left quickly. In the distance, Amos' voice rang again. Sister Aya, is Brother Jian very handsome? Knowing from Chong Ling's mouth, Zaijishin is infinite, and facts have proved that it is true. Jian Wushuang, who was walking forward holding Ami, although the speed of was not too fast, it was more than enough to cross a heavenly plane every 10 breaths. Even so, the road ahead is still just a creeping grass and clear springs. Ami, do you know how to find Uncle Yu or Emperor? Jian Wushuang asked. Already lying on his back, some sleepy Ami shook his head. I don't know. We can only see Grandpa if Grandpa wants to see us. Other than that, we can't find it. That's a little troublesome. Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed slightly. Although his injury was slowly recovering, it was not enough to support his constant consumption. Although the strength of this Zaijishin is extremely strong, there is not much to absorb. If he continues to search aimlessly, I am afraid that he hasn't found Uncle Yu yet. He will be exhausted first. After all, it has not been long since being bullied by the previous group of urchins. Chapter 50-25. But Jian Wushuang was not in a hurry, but gradually calmed down. The fairyland at the foot is Xiaojia Mountain, a fairyland where Zhen Wuyang lives leisurely. He didn't believe that Uncle Yu, or even Zhen Wuyang, would not know that a strange fairy had broken into Xiaojia Mountain. Most likely they were observing in secret. Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang remained silent, but exuded divine thoughts and kept exploring. The result is naturally nothing. In desperation, he could only move forward quickly again. Immortal grasses are growing, and the wind is lingering. Jian Wushuang is carrying Ami on his back and moving forward quickly, but apart from all kinds of fairy trails, there is no trace of even the aura of Yanxian. This made him feel a little vague. Why did Uncle Yu bring him to Xiajishan, and why didn't he show up? As he fell into contemplation, his footsteps stopped immediately. He felt a bit muddy under his feet, and he wouldn't find it if he didn't notice it carefully. In the next moment, endless mysterious black patterns sprawled out from under the feet, with a barren and ancient aura. In it, Jian Wushuang felt desolation and loneliness inexplicably. Yes, my spirit is very powerful, and I found my breath in such a short time. Accompanied by this somewhat old voice resounding, a thin figure condensed from the ancient black patterns stood in front of him. Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed, and he knew that this was Yu Bo Yuchang. With one's own power, the mysterious power to sleep Emperor Zhenwu. Yu Chang's face was calm, and he looked at him carefully and seemed more satisfied. But he was a little anxious, eager to know the whereabouts of Diqing and Jiang Lian. As if he had guessed what he was thinking, Yu Chang said slowly, "I will answer your question, but not now." "Now you answer my question." "Good." Jian Wushuang nodded without hesitation. "What are you best at?" He was startled. Then he meditated for a moment. "Sword." "Sword, it sounds good." Yu Chang nodded and smiled kindly. "How about we try?" Jian Wushuang's eyes twitched. "Well, Uncle, you should not be kidding." "Just kidding." The old man in front of him who is not visible and due, but the ruthless character who can fight the emperor. The strength is unimaginable. The quasi-emperor is no longer in existence that can lie, let alone an emperor? Jian Wushuang believed that as long as Zhen Wuyang or Yu Chang had been killed in the first line, he would not survive for a while, and he would not even be able to resist. This is why he will be very resistant to show strength. It's just that everything that happens next is beyond his control. A long sword full of black ink and engraved with endless dents and dense patterns appeared in Yu Chang's hands. "Come on, let me see where your limits are," he said, pointing his sword straight ahead. Jian Wushuang's brows jumped fiercely, and only bitterness was left in his eyes. The sword of the emperor kills everything. Even though he has the strongest kendo, he still doesn't think it is comparable. One is Yanxian, and the other is emperor. Every step in between is an insurmountable gap. This is no longer a fight, it's all about death. Obviously, Jian Wushuang didn't want to die. But these can't help him. What you can see has become Yu Chang's domain, and endless black patterns are flowing, forming a magnificent dojo. And this battle of disparity has already begun. Yu Chang held the sword of the emperor and slashed straight down. In an instant, a sword that was like a mountain and sea turned into a million swords, and was quickly cut down. A chill rose behind Jian Wushuang, a great horror between life and death, and he had to resist. This was a dead sword, and it didn't leave him any way back. Even the Emperor Zhuan would only fall under this sword. There was no way. Jian Wushuang guessed that Yu Chang already knew the secret in the Bo Yang bottle, so he wanted to kill him. Knowing that he was about to die, he calmed down instead. Wushuang Kendo, Zingehu Heijianini, the first style, the second style. Star River. Two way out. Even under the control of Yu Chang, the sword intent is still endless. The towering Tianhe swept away, and Jian Wushuang stood at the head of the tide, resolutely raising his sword to meet. Facing that sword cut, the invisible sword shone to the extreme. Zheng dash, the sound of gold and iron strikes, and then everything fell into silence. The kendo Tianhe shattered, turning into an endless sword intent and disappearing. Jian Wushuang stood in place, and the invisible sword in his hand was also broken into powder. On his chest, a shocking sword cut almost cut it in half. The blood of the scarlet gold spewed out, spilling into the void. An unspeakable pain, as if even the divine mind was cut off. But this pain lasted for less than 10 breaths, and disappeared without a trace as the scar healed. Jian Wushuang didn't even have time to express his stance, and the fairy body had recovered as before. How could it be? He was shocked and pressed his chest in disbelief. Yu Chang, who saw this scene from a distance, smiled slightly, and then cut again with his sword. This time, there are 10 sword cuts. Jian Wushuang was shocked. He couldn't bear it with just one sword cut. There were 9 more ways. And the destruction was bound to be a foregone conclusion. He resisted, and not surprisingly, the kendo was easily broken, and even the fairy body was almost torn into pieces. Jian Wushuang was already at a loss when he covered the wound with the blood gushing out with his palm, because he discovered that the immortal body was healed at an unimaginable speed. This is really incredible. You know, even if the immortal body is transformed from an ultra-perfect chaotic creature, it is in existence against the sky, but it does not have an exaggerated recovery speed. Facing the emperor's prosperous sword, or even 10 swords, not only did it not shatter, but he withstood it and healed quickly, which is simply unimaginable. Jian Wushuang was just a cultivating immortal, and the strength of the immortal body, plus the strength of the 9 heavens Yixuanzong envoy, could resist the attacks of rank 6, or even rank 9 Dian immortal, and it would never be possible to withstand the power of the emperor. Could it be that Yu reads www.akanshu.com because of Jiutiani Xian? Jian Wushuang was worried, not knowing that Yu Chang had taken the sword and came to him. How's your body? I feel pretty good. It's really good. It's durable enough to withstand the power of the emperor. Yu Chang was amazed. Your immortal body is no longer the previous one. Jian Wushuang looked at him a little puzzled, and at the same time didn't know the reason for this change. Do you remember what happened last in the Sea of No Edge? Jian Wushuang nodded. I remember, but it's not clear. Is it related to him? It does matter. At the last moment, I expelled his true shadow, but he still has the most important thing left in your body. Chapter 50-26. Jian Wushuang heard the words, his eyes twitched slightly. Yu Chang then spoke again. Have you noticed any strange changes in your fairy body? Thinking slightly, he said, it's very strong, and the recovery speed is almost indistinguishable from the previous one. More importantly, it can withstand the power of the Emperor. If this were placed before, it would be almost unthinkable. Even if the immortal body is terrible and against the sky, it is still impossible to withstand the power of the Emperor. It has an upper limit to withstand. Generally, the rank 6 Dian Immortal, or even the rank 3 Dian Immortal, can inflict heavy damage or even destruction on the immortal. After all, Jian Wushuang is only the realm of evolving immortals, but now immortal, he has completely withstood Yu Chang's full blow. That's a ruthless character who can fight the Emperor. Want to know what Emperor Zhenwu left in your body? Yu Chang said again. Jian Wushuang nodded. Emperor body. Emperor body. Emperor body. His eyes widened for an instant, and even the words were a bit uncomfortable. Emperor body, the body of the Emperor. Emperor Zhenwu actually left the Emperor body in his body. No wonder the immortal body can withstand the blow of Yu Chang. Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang's heart throbbed uncontrollably. This improvement is too scary, completely beyond one's own imagination. Knowing that he is just the peak of the fairy tale, the fairy body can stop the Emperor's offensive. What if he stepped into the realm of the fairy tale in the future? The immortal body grows with the growth of the realm. Jian Wushuang dare not imagine what a scene he would be like on the day he became a Dian Immortal. But soon he woke up somewhat worried. Since Emperor Zhenwu's immortal body was really left in his body, it is not surprising that Yu Chang brought him to the heavenly court. The true shadow of Emperor Zhenwu fell asleep in the endless sea again, and his emperor body should also be taken over by the heaven. Are you going to pull his emperor body away? Jian Wushuang asked, looking up at him. Yu Chang smiled slightly and said non-committal. It's still early days. It's the first time you have come to Xiaojie Mountain, so you can travel a bit first. After Jian Wushuang heard this, he probably knew that the emperor body left in his fairy body would soon be taken out. Therefore, he's simply no longer entangled. Even if the emperor body is stronger, he has been noticed by the heavenly court, known to the emperor, and there is no way to stay. The world was silent. The endless black patterns retreated, and the world of Xiaojishan was revealed again. Stepping on the creeping fairy grass under your feet, the two moved forward. Little friend, why did you go to the borderless sea? Yu Chang walked in front and asked. Save people. Jian Wushuang looked at him, a little nervous. You want to ask, is he in the borderless sea now or has he left there? Yes. Then you can relax, he has been brought out by me, just like you in this Xiaojishan. Hearing this news, Jian Wushuang took a sigh of relief, and the journey to the borderless sea was not in vain. But then he felt nervous again, thinking of Jiang Lian returning to both. Yu Chang also said, except for Diqing, the rest of Yanxian exiled in the borderless sea must not leave. This is the emperor's order. With a sigh, Jian Wushuang's eyes were only sad. He felt that the Xianxian exiled in the endless sea was not inexcusable or even innocent, but suffered unimaginable pain. For the immortal Yanxian who is endless Shouyuan, being exiled and imprisoned in a cage is the coldest and cruel punishment. Little friend, are you the heavenly official next to Xiao Dijuan? Forget it, but it won't be soon. Are you leaving, or is it because of other things? Maybe I will travel in a while, so I can't stabilize it. As for the position of Tianguan, I think there should be more suitable candidates than me. Yu Chang nodded and said no more. After a tens of thousands of miles, their speed is not slow, but the scenery in their eyes has not changed, as if there is no real end point. I don't know how long it has been. When one of the leading boys keeps appearing, the immortal Xiaojishan can be regarded as a little angry. Immediately afterwards, a series of dojos condensed from pure and extremely powerful forces appeared. In the dojo filled with immortality, there is a figure sitting or lying down. With just a glance, Jian Wushuang swallowed his throat involuntarily, because the figures in each dojo were full of light wheels, and there was a general trend that could not be said. In other words, each of them is a rank 9 Dian Immortal. who is the ancient power to help Zhenwiang develop the Desai territory. Moreover, there is more than one Wangu great power like this. Looking around, there are hundreds of magnificent Taoist temples. Let's go. I'll take you to see the emperor. Yu Chang smiled slightly, and then walked forward. It was only then that Jian Wushuang noticed that the center of the dojo on one side, like stars arching over the moon, brought out a more magnificent and calm dojo. The endless moon blossoms slowly swirled around the edge of the dojo like a tassel, unable to indicate at all. Yu Chang guided forward, and the warm jade steps that were transformed under his feet stretched far away, depressing the throbbing in his heart. Jian Wushuang bit his scalp and quickly followed. As he moved forward, the silent dojo around him began to exude a general trend of awakening, and then one body after another soared out. They don't have to deliberately. The kind of vibe that is like a mountain and sea will overwhelming the heavens is completely radiated. Every veteran cast a curious look at Jian Wushuang, and then walked forward together. He glanced at a veteran of Wang Wangu around him from the corner of his light. Jian Wushuang did not squint, and was extremely nervous. No other reason, just because the luck released by the Wangu elders was too powerful and terrifying. This made Jian Wushuang, who was already weak, had to do his best to resist the pressure of the whole body. He was miserable, but he could barely deal with it. Yu Chang walked in the forefront, followed him with a wave of his palm, and the moonlight barrier opened, revealing the true face of the dojo. A lot of colored lotus sprouts from underfoot and stretches into the dojo. This is a Hualien Avenue. The giants all over the sky smiled and walked into the dojo. Little friend, come with me. Yu Chang looked back and smiled, reaching out to lead. Jian Wushuang replied, and after taking a deep breath, he stepped on Hualien Avenue and entered this magnificent dojo. Hundreds of millions of colorful lotus sprawls, and the top avenue luck flows like a thread in the dojo slowly. With that kind of luck, it was enough to give birth to the most powerful shocking Tianjiao. Jian Wushuang stood in the dojo, looking very hard. The sky was full of giants. At this time, Wang Guyu's bell tolls lightly, and the sky is the same. Chapter 50-27. Every veteran is the supreme one who walked out of that ancient age. Even in the imperial dojo of Zhenmiang, they all have their own small world. The stars cross the moon. The stars and the moon twine. In the middle of the entire magnificent dojo, there was a middle-aged figure in a white uniform. He closed his eyes quietly. His clothes all over his body were fluttering, and his billions of fortunes were connected to each other, so he could not look directly at him. Jian Wushuang, who had been in the heavenly court several times, naturally couldn't be clearer. That figure was the emperor of the entire great Siyu Zhenwuyang. With the giants all over the sky seated in their respective small worlds, Jian Wushuang also sat in his small world at the invitation of Yu Chang. Yu Chang's Zhuoxiandi is the closest seat to Emperor Zhenwuyang, and sits almost side by side. The other Wangu elders are all around like stars. Looking at Emperor Zhenwuyang, sitting almost side by side, Jian Wushuang was sitting on pins and needles. This was the first time that he was so close to Zhenwuyang, and the discomfort came to his face. Especially when facing the gaze of so many Wangu elders, the discomfort became stronger. However, Jian Wushuang was once the lord of the universe, his mind was firm, and he soon returned to normal, and he began to watch his nose and his heart. At the same time, Zhenwuyang, who had been closing his eyes and meditating, quietly opened his eyes. And at first glance he didn't look at the elders of the heavens, but at Jian Wushuang. With eyes facing each other, a kind of unspeakable air luck, as if straddling the ages, rushing towards the face. It is a kind of vertical and horizontal long-lasting gaze, with absolute suppression. This is the involuntary coercion from the divine mind. Jian Wushuang's eyes were calm and waveless, but his palms under his robe were already condensed. Even though his spiritual thoughts were mellow, he still felt dizzy. But this kind of coercion only lasted for a few breaths of time, and it slowly retracted with Zhenwuyang's unclear gaze. Then he spoke, his voice soft and steady. I have seen you, the little Zhuo Yangxian who stirred Kanglan before the six-day realm. Jian Wushuang was dumb, not knowing how to answer. Zhenwuyang said again, It's just that if you don't be with Yener, what are you doing in the sea of no edge? He knew that this was asking knowingly, but he could only bite the bullet and said, Go and save a fairy. Zhenwuyang laughed when he heard the words. It's honest too. Jian Wushuang also wanted to find an excuse to pass the level at will. But this is already a certainty. You must know that the last battle of the Sea of No Coast even alarmed Yu Chang. Yu Chang was alarmed, and Zhenwuyang could not have been unaware of it, so this was a knowing question. Yena opened the door for you? Yes. It's really courageous. You two not only dare to think, but also dare to do it. If a little Yinxian rushes into the land of exile, he is not afraid of perishing in it? I'm afraid, but I can't help myself. Zhenwuyang looked at him, and did not speak any more. After a while he said again, It is unimaginable that you can walk out of the sea without a boarder alive, but since everything has happened and is over, I will no longer hold the blame. You continue to be a great heaven official by Yener, so protect him. Jian Wushuang remained silent, and finally apologized slightly. I'm sorry, I'm afraid I can't do it. The reason why I was with him temporarily, to take the post of Tianguan, is actually because of an agreement between us. Once 70 years have passed, I will leave. The voice fell. The emperor's dojo was silent. All the elders looked at him, and their eyes flashed with surprise. Because for an immortal, being able to become a heavenly official of the emperor's line, basically the future road of cultivation, will be thousands of times smoother. The position of Tianguan is far more than just a position. It represents the ability to enjoy the luck of the emperor. That kind of luck is enough for a Yinxian to easily enter the realm of Dianxian. And as the years go by, it is not difficult to break through the 6th rank. For Yinxian whose life is almost endless, this is almost a condition that cannot be looked up. Even for the veterans, they are quite generous conditions. You know, the emperor's luck is too important. So important that even the 9th ranked Dian immortal covets extremely. But right now he was rejected by a Yinxian. At this time, Yu Chang said, Little friend, then do you know how many years have passed since the outside world entered the borderless sea? Jian Wushuang was startled, then shook his head. I don't know. 1,000 years. What? 10,000 years. He was in a trance for an instant, and even his spiritual thoughts fluctuated. 10,000 years have passed since Shinli universe came to Daeanhuan. He didn't even have time to do anything, and it flew for thousands of years. Yu Chang nodded. It has indeed been 10,000 years since you entered the borderless sea. Resting in a daze, Jian Wushuang nodded. Thank you for letting me know. Zhen Wuyang said. Where do you plan to go after the agreement is over? He shook his head. I don't know, I think I will travel around. Zhen Wuyang laughed. Then do you think I will let you go? No. Jian Wushuang said simply. You're right, I won't let one go. The little Yinxian who can shake Dianxian leaves to see you, not to mention Thixxiangxian, is the only one who retreats from the sea of no edge. Jian Wushuang was silent. Zhen Wuyang didn't want him to leave. There were 10,000 ways, but he could only accept passively. Zhen Wuyang looked at him and said, but there are exceptions to everything. If you want to leave, there is another way. Any solution? Break down the heavenly official I chose for Yenner. Then you can leave by yourself. Okay, I agree. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang said firmly. He could already imagine that Zhen Wuyang would randomly appoint a veteran around him as the heavenly official of the younger brother. Once that happens, he has no chance of winning. But what was unexpected next was that Zhen Wuyang did not arbitrarily appoint a veteran. A Khonshu. Kam instead looked at Yu Chang. Yu Chang nodded, then got up and waved his sleeves, widening the gate of the dojo. Immediately afterwards, dozens of people led the boy in file. Surrounded by them, a young man with sharp brows and sharp eyebrows stepped into the dojo. Jian Wushuang's eyes condensed, a little surprised. Because the visitor was not someone else. It was the young man who made trouble for him when he first came to Xiajishan. Chang Ling called it a green hill. This is really a coincidence. Jian Wushuang understands that Qingshan should be the heavenly official selected by Zhen Wuyang for the little emperor. Just as he thought, Zhen Wuyang subsequently declared that Qingshan was the official candidate of Xiaodijan. The eyes were facing each other. At this moment, the green mountain standing in the center of the dojo was shocked to the extreme. He had never thought that when they met again, they would be in the monarch's dojo. Chapter 50-28. What's even worse is that there is such a correlation between the two of them. Qing Shan never thought that they would have a battle. I heard that you are enough to defeat Dian Immortal. Now that I am defeating Qing Shan, I can let you go and stop forcing you to be with Yenner. How about? Jian Wushuang nodded. Yes. Go ahead. Zhen Wuyang finally said. The boundless luck turned into a breeze, wrapped it up and sent it to the center of the dojo. Qing Shan still didn't recover, looking at Jian Wushuang in disbelief. The two faced each other far away, and Jian Wushuang never took a step back. The green mountain in front of him was a third-ranked Great Yin Xian. Because of his practice in Xiajishan, his strength was almost surging to the extreme. As long as there is a chance for a breakthrough, he will inevitably reach the rank 6 realm easily. The breeze from nowhere blew up their clothes. An invisible sword has appeared quietly. You want to shoot at me? Qing Shan felt a little absurd, and a little Yin Xian would actually have the heart to fight. As a last resort, Jian Wushuang said. The invisible sword in his hand was already bright. In that case, let's start. Qing Shan said coldly, with the true sword already in hand. The squally gusts are blowing and breaking out. Sister Ling, Brother Jian is about to fight him. What should I do? In front of Tianmen, Ami shook Chang Ling's finger in a hurry and said. Chang Ling's face was solemn, and it was obvious that Jian Wushuang's behavior was in her eyes. And there was no doubt that she would die. There is a third-ranked Dian Immortal, and the other is an immortal. The difference between them is no longer able to tell in words. They don't even have to fight, the end is doomed. Although Chang Ling was secretly anxious, she couldn't help it because they couldn't even enter the dojo, and they could only stand outside the Tianmen and watch everything that happened in the dojo. Then, she squatted down and looked at Ami and said, Your brother Jian will be fine. Do you think Brother Jian is great? Ami said quickly, Very powerful as Xiao Dijuan. That's right, your brother Jian will definitely win. Chang Ling said with a smile. Then, will Brother Jian definitely win? Definitely, we will watch it right here. Yu Chang, what do you think of the result? Zhen Wuyang turned to look at Yu Chang and said with a smile. He didn't speak, his somewhat muddy eyes looked down, and it took a long time to say a word. Green hills are not as good as swords. Zhen Wuyang didn't comment on this, but watched this extremely unequal battle with interest. Next, a scene that surprised the elders of the heavens appeared. None of them thought that Jian Wushuang would actually take the lead, carrying an indomitable general trend, crushing towards the Green Mountain. The mighty sword intent swept up and rolled up the dust in the dojo, instantly surrounding the front. Qing Shan's gaze condensed. His own realm and power exploded directly. The terrifying force that belongs to the third stage realm. Once released, it is almost completely crushed. The magnificent Yanli turned into an inch of light, and after cutting away the dust that was transformed from the sword intent, he emasculated Jian Wushuang unabated. Zhang! With the loud sound, Jian Wushuang was cut back 1,000 feet. Sparks overflowed. He didn't stop his figure until 1,000 feet away. Although defeated by thousands of feet, he was not injured in the slightest. Because of the 9-day clothing mysterious, plus the protection of the emperor's body, Xiu said that it was a green hill, even 10,000 green hills, and there was no possibility of breaking the defense. This is the confidence that Jian Wushuang, who is still in a weak state, will face. Qing Shan's mind was calm. In this first confrontation, he seemed to have taken the lead, but he did not feel relieved. He could feel that Jian Wushuang was not easy, so he began to be careful. But Jian Wushuang was not the case. His immortal body could not be broken for the time being, so he didn't hesitate to rush up directly. Wushuang Kendo, Xingahoi second style was also released. The lofty Tianhe swept down, and once again rolled up the dust and covered it forward. Qing Shan didn't dare to underestimate him. Although he was the third-ranked Dian Immortal, Jian Wushuang inexplicably gave him a huge pressure. Especially under the sword intent, he unexpectedly felt a kind of shock. Converging his mind, he held a sword facing each other, which was the terrifying power of the third-ranked Dian Immortal, which was undoubtedly revealed. The dark cyan strength also swept up, like a mountain and sea pillar, smashing into the Kendo Tianhe. The two collide, and the general situation is competing. At this moment, even the Emperor's dojo trembled. All Wangu veterans watched this scene in astonishment. They couldn't believe that these powers were actually released by a third-turn Dian Immortal and a Yin Xian. And Qing Yanli kept retreating, but the sword Tianhe was also rapidly shattering. The green mountain that was gritted his teeth was already shocked to the point where it could not be added. He actually played a match with the Yin Xian, evenly matched. This made him unbearable. He was furious, and a shocking natal treasure condensed at this moment. Then, the natal treasure opened his eyes, carrying the momentum of the mountains and seas, slammed his palms towards the Kendo Tianhe. Boom! The towering Kendo Tianhe shattered in an instant and turned into endless tassels scattered and disappeared. However, almost at the same time, a bit of cold light quietly appeared in Qing Shan's eyes. He was so shocked that he never thought that Jian Wushuang would hide in the Tianhe and crush him towards him. This is an absolute sword, an absolutely unstoppable sword, a sword that fights for life. Qing Shan was very aware of the horror of this sword, so he desperately released his life treasure to stop it. But it was too late. A bit of cold light appeared, and then pierced into the natal treasure. Time seemed to stagnate, and Jian Wushuang's absolute sword hit completely. In the next moment, with the heart's mouth as the center, hundreds of millions of azure blue cracks were instantly covered with natal treasures. The breath dissipated, and Yanli collapsed. Along with the shattering of his natal treasure, King Shan's complexion in a white shirt changed. He backed back heavily, and the white shirt in his heart was already wet with blood. The dojo was silent, and all the elders raised their heads and stared at the green mountain. The gods are so bloody, they are incredible. A third-ranked Dian Immortal would be forced to such a degree by a Yin Xian. How could this be possible? Fighting across borders is something that has never happened before, but it is happening now. Even if it is the only shocking arrogant in all ages, I am afraid it can't be done. This shocked the cognition of all veterans, including Jim Wuyang. He wrinkled his brows slightly, and the Emperor's true face had never been so solemn. He has been struggling all his life, controlling an innumerable universe, and he has been completely moved after seeing too many Tianjiao. Qing Shan is not as good as a sword. It is really not as good as a sword. Chapter 50-29. Jian Wushuang drew the sword and stood. His face was so hard that he gave birth to a sickly red. He is still in a weak state, not getting better at all. And even the serious consequences have been exacerbated by the fighting. But he still supported the normal operation of the Buddhist strength. Qingshan is a realm of the third-ranked Dayan immortal, and he will never lose easily. Even if he was injured by absolute sword for the first time, he could actually be evaded. After all, the gap between rank 3 Dayan immortal and Yinxian was too big. His one sword hit Qingshan severely, but it was not fatal, nor did it hurt the root cause. The real war is about to begin. Qingshan slowly raised his head. Only cold killing intent remained in his sword-sharp brows. The next moment, he took a sudden step and slammed into Jian Wushuang like an arrow. Jian Wushuang's eyebrows lowered. He didn't evade, and even faced Qingshan. He slammed into it. Boom! The two directly collided like that, shaking the world. The resulting slaying explosion directly swept across, and the endless force burst open, completely raging in the entire dojo. Yu Chang stretched out his hand in time, and with supreme luck, all the slaying explosions were enveloped in the barrier. At this moment, all Wangu elders sat up straight, their eyes shocked. Outside of Tianmen, Chongling couldn't believe it, but she knew Qingshan's cultivation level best. It was because she was too clear that she was shocked. She knew Jian Wushuang's weakness, and it was precisely because of her weakness that she had helped out earlier. But the current scene completely subverted her imagination. Jian Wushuang, who seemed weak, unexpectedly broke out with such power. When the sabotage reached its peak, Chongling covered Amos' eyes with her hands in time. She didn't want Ami to see Jian Wushuang's defeat. In her heart, there is absolutely no possibility that he will not fail. The gulf between the three-turn great Yinxian and Yinxian cannot be changed by working hard. The dust is cleared. When the two figures stand on opposite sides, Chongling's eyes are rounded to the maximum. Jian Wushuang's robe was shattered, but he did not suffer any damage. And Qingshan's entire left shoulder was completely shattered, and the blood was spurting down, repairing with difficulty. The result was reversed, and all Wangu elders, including Zhen Wuyang, were completely surprised. How could this be the power Yinxian can possess? Qingshan clasped his broken right arm tightly, retreating with a degree of disbelief, and looked at Jian Wushuang in disbelief and surprise. If the first confrontation means nothing, then this second confrontation speaks for itself. Qingshan lost. Jian Wushuang was also uncomfortable. The blood in the fairy's body was surging, and his power was almost exhausted. If it were not for the backing of the emperor body, he would definitely not risk the exhaustion of his power to fight against Qingshan. As the right arm condensed with difficulty, Qingshan slowly said, "Are you really just a fairy?" Without answering him, Jian Wushuang said, "You admit defeat. I just want to leave here, and I don't want to be your enemy." He was startled, then the corners of his eyes trembled. "Are you insulting me?" "No, I just want to end this meaningless fight." Jian Wushuang didn't finish a word. Qingshan was already furious. His arms suddenly waved, and in an instant, his endless strength turned into a million green front sword curtain, swept up. The Qingfeng sword curtain besieged Jian Wushuang almost instantly, with boundless momentum. At this moment, all Wangu veterans are looking forward to it. The Green Mountain roared, pushing the endless green front sword curtain down. Next, Jian Wushuang, who was in the sword curtain, made a shocking move. He completely gave up any defense, and with his chest against the falling sword curtain, he quickly rushed towards the Green Mountain. This scene surprised all the elders. Zhen Wuyang frowned, as if he had realized something, and suddenly realized after a moment. Immediately, he was a little upset. "Yu Chang, why don't you remind me?" Yu Chang smiled. "Emperor, it's not that Yu Chang didn't remind, but you didn't give me the opportunity to remind." "Miscalculation. Why did you say that I forgot the abnormality in this kid fairy body?" Zhen Wuyang smiled bitterly. This time, it seems that there is no suspense anymore. Yu Chang asked immediately, "If Wushuang little friend wins, will the emperor let him leave?" "Of course I will let him leave. Even if he is shocked again, he will be stunning. If Hyener is not of one mind, I will not force him to stay. It's a pity that Yenner. Zhen Wuyang didn't say any more, but after a long sigh, he looked at the battle in the dojo again. Qing Shan had forgotten everything. Only astonishment was left in his eyes. That figure grew bigger and bigger in his pupils, and was finally completely occupied. The endless Qingfeng sword curtain, even the Jiutiani Xian on Jian Wushuang's body, has not been damaged at all, let alone damaged the emperor's body? A little scarlet red light appeared, stabbing towards the fairy source of Qingshan without any pause. Jian Wushuang's eyes were red, and he used the power of the way of killing, only to thirst for blood. If the hit was in the middle, Qingshan would never be alive. But the next moment, this scarlet red light didn't pierce the Xian Yuan, but grazed Qingshan's chest. At the same time, Jian Wushuang used his shoulders to exert force, hitting his heart heavily, and blasted it out. Boom! Like mountains and seas, the divine peak collapsed. He slammed heavily on the barrier, and then fell into the dojo. The dojo was silent, and all Wangu veterans looked solemn. Outside of Tianmen, Chang Ling was completely stunned, staring at Jian Wushuang in a daze. Ami opened her palm, saw this scene, and suddenly shouted with excitement, "Big brother sword wins, brother sword wins." After Qing Shan lying on his back in the dojo suddenly drew out a sip of blood, he got up with difficulty, and looked at Jian Wushuang with a complex expression. His immortal body was intact, and he had never suffered a serious injury. The only blood that spewed out was also knocked out. Jian Wushuang, who had temporarily regained his momentum, almost completely withstood the backlash. If it weren't for the strong body, it would not be impossible for him to pass out on the spot. Secretly swallowing blood in his throat, he slowly turned around and looked at Zhen Wuyang. At this moment, the elders of the heavens held their breath and looked at Zhen Wuyang together. Everything counts. Zhen Wuyang nodded slightly. Jian Wushuang secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and then he thanked him. But shortly afterwards, Zhen Wuyang spoke again. His voice was supremely prestigious. "Since you don't want to be Yenner's heavenly official, this emperor will not force it. But now the emperor asks you, would you like to be the emperor's heavenly official?" Jian Wushuang's eyes twitched and his eyes widened. The elders of the heavens also twitched at the corners of their eyes, and their eyes widened, exactly the same. Emperor Zhen Wuyang, the supreme existence of the entire Desai domain, is actually inviting an immortal at this moment. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.